Okay, so we're going to call to order the March 9th executive session per ORS 192-6602D. The time is 5:41. I'm going to ask our council president to read the executive session script, and then we're going to adjourn into a closed session.
I assume you're asking me to do this, so I'll do it now.
Thank you.
City of Gladstone City Council will now meet in the executive session pursuant to ORS 192.6602D to conduct deliberations with persons designated by the governing body to carry on labor negotiations. Representatives of the news media and staff designated by council are invited to attend the executive session. All other members of the audience are cordially requested to leave the room. Members of the media are specifically directed not to report on the deliberations that occur during the executive session, except, of course, to state the general subject of the session. All others present has also advised that discussions during the executive session are to remain confidential. The City Council may not make any final decision in this executive session. It is further understood that the presence of the media in the council chambers while the city's attorney is discussing matters with the council is not intended to, nor does it waive in any way the attorney-client privilege that attaches to those communications. If a final decision on any matter is necessary, that decision will be made once the council comes out of executive session and is back in regular session and the public is invited in. Thank you very much.
Okay, so the time is 5:42. We're going to leave the open meeting and go to the executive session.
Okay, thank you.
I call to order the Gladstone City Council meeting for March 9th, 2021 at 6:30 p.m. Good evening, everybody. Per the Governor's Executive Order 20-16 regarding compliance with Oregon's public meeting laws, the City of Gladstone is abiding by social distancing requirements during the coronavirus pandemic. This City Council meeting will be conducted virtually using the Zoom platform. The Zoom access instructions can be found on the meeting agenda. Members of the City Council, staff, and the public all have access to this call. Public comment requests were accepted prior to noon today and were to include your topic and phone number. The city upgraded its Zoom software so it allows us to easily conduct events with a simpler interface in a professional setting. There are two groups of participants. Those are panelists and attendees. Panelists are those you will see on a platform such as elected officials, the city administrator, city attorney, staff, or any person making a presentation. Attendees are those in the audience. Attendees will still be able to speak for 3 minutes during business from the audience or during agenda items if they submitted their request to speak before noon today. Additionally, if members of the public become disruptive, we will mute and remove them from the video conference. If that fails to stop the disruption, we will recess the meeting and return within 5 minutes. If we are unable to continue, council will briefly meet off air to move unfinished business to the next council meeting. Tonight's consent agenda includes approval of the February 9th, 2021 meeting minutes, approval of the January bank balances, budget reports for periods ending January 31st, 2021, approval of the January check register, legal costs on projects, department head monthly reports for February 2021, and approval of Resolution 1191, which is a resolution amending Resolution 1185, declaring a state of emergency regarding COVID-19 until July 31st, 2021. Our regular meeting agenda includes the State of the City's Address, 2021 and 2022 City Council goals, Ordinance 1508, approving the Gladstone Housing Needs Analysis for the years 2021 through 2041, City of Gladstone Community Engagement Strategy Housing Zone Code Project, public hearing for Ordinance 1509, amending the Gladstone Municipal Code, also referred to as the GMC, Chapter 9.49, City Parks and City Property Exclusion, public hearing for Ordinance 1510, amending the Gladstone Municipal Code, Chapter 9.60, camping prohibited in certain places, public Public hearing for resolution 1190, a resolution updating the master fee schedule for park user fees, and appointments to the audit committee, budget committee, and traffic safety advisory board. Tammy, could you please call the roll?
Mayor, prior to doing that, I don't know if Councillor Garlington has her computer on. You may try to move that a little ways away because we're having trouble with your microphone.
Thank you. That's what, yeah, I couldn't hear hardly anything.
We'll see if that helps at all.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Ripley.
Yes.
Councillor Alexander.
Here.
Councillor Tracy.
Present.
Councillor Hartman.
Here.
Councillor Todd.
Here.
Councillor Garlington. Mayor Stemple.
Here. Thank you. Could you put the flag up so we can do the flag salute? I see it in a little picture there.
Mayor,
We're still
having problems understanding you.
We may.
There's,
No.
yeah, that's feedback. There, that you're too close, I think.
Well, her computer's not even on.
Hmm. Well, it's still, yeah, it's still hard to understand.
Really? Should we just keep going and try it?
We may have the mayor try to log back on.
Okay, you want me to do that?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I'm gonna try and log back on. Whew.
It's not happening to anybody now, is it?
No.
No, it's with.
Turn my.
Okay, thank you.
Mindy's moving into the other room, so she's just gonna be a second.
May have fixed it.
Yeah, I don't hear the static now.
Okay, yeah, Mindy just went in the queue. So she'll be logging on here shortly.
Looks like she should be coming on now.
Counselor, are you there?
Yep,
Okay, we don't have video.
I'm working on that.
While she's working on it, we can go ahead and do the Pledge of Allegiance if that's all right. We'll just use that flag that's up there in the corner. So I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America,
United States of America.
republic for which it stands, one nation, under God,
Nation under God,
liberty and justice for all.
indivisible, liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Staff, are there any agenda additions or corrections?
I have nothing. Thank you, Mayor.
All right, so the first item on our agenda is the consent agenda. Would someone like to pull an item, have a discussion, or make a motion? Any concerns or questions on the consent agenda? No? Would someone like to make a motion, please, to accept the consent agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Who was second? I didn't hear that.
Ripley.
Yes, Ripley. Councillor Tracy made a motion, seconded by Councillor Ripley to approve the consent agenda. Do we have any further discussion? Tammy, do a roll call vote, please.
Councillor Alexander. Councillor Alexander.
Yes.
Councillor Tracy.
Aye.
Councillor Hartman.
Aye.
Councillor Todd.
Aye.
Councillor Garlington.
Yes.
Councillor Ripley.
Yes.
Mayor Stemple.
Yes, consent agenda approved. And do we have any correspondence, Jackie?
I have nothing. Thank you.
Thank you. So a couple of things before we start. First, for those folks that would like to speak, the deadline to accept comments was noon today. As a reminder, we allow 3 minutes for public comment. Second, as I do before every meeting, I would like to say a few words regarding the City Council. The most important limitation we have sitting here is that we are representing the citizens of Gladstone, not our own personal agendas and beliefs. There have been many times when a decision being made doesn't align with what we would like personally, but have made a decision based on what is best for the city as a whole. That doesn't mean our personal beliefs have changed, just that the city's needs were more important. As we discuss and consider matters, there are laws and rules we have to use as the basis of our decision. These start at the federal and state level, then filter down to our city's comprehensive plan, city charter, codes, and ordinances. We do not have the luxury of randomly making decisions, but instead have to be consistent and take a path that is defensible. We appreciate you taking the time to call in and participate in this process. We will have your phones muted until it is your time to speak. If we're not able to mute your phone, please do so on your end. My goal is to keep this meeting respectful and engaging, and I hope all of you can help me do this. So the first item on the agenda is the State of the City's address, which is a long one, folks. So I'm sorry about this, but we did a heck of a lot in the last year. All right. So good evening, everyone. I would like to take this opportunity to first thank everyone that has stepped up during the past year and made a difference in our community. 2020 was a year that tested everyone and pushed so many people to the brink, but our citizens came together in so many ways and helped where they could. Thank you. This past year has been incredibly difficult, starting with a global health crisis that proved beyond the shadow of a doubt how vulnerable we all are. To by financial devastation for so many, isolation, loneliness, and mental health crises to a scale we've never seen before, social issues dividing our country, wildfires, and an ice storm that further tested our resiliency, and a polarizing political season, both nationally and locally. The Gladstone City Council is hopeful, though a little wary of what 2021 will bring. I have spoken with so many citizens over the past 2 months that have said 2020 was terrible on a large scale, but 2021 seems to be terrible on a more personal level. And I wholeheartedly agree with that. We have all gone through so much together as a community and are more aware than ever of how much we depend on each other. We have remained positive though, and determined to achieve what needs to be done to help our city move forward and recover. We know this will pass, but we will all need to pitch in and make sure we are prepared for the future. I would like to highlight major accomplishments from the past year that mirrored the City Council goals. First, are milestones completed that address affordable housing. We received a grant from the Department of Land Conservation and Development, usually referred to as DLCD, to complete the 2021 to 2041 Gladstone Housing Needs Analysis and the development of a community engagement strategy. Clackamas County Housing Authority purchased 18000 Webster Road using Metro Affordable Housing Funds. This is the first project in Clackamas County utilizing those funds. They also received approval for a conditional use permit to convert the existing 27,000 square foot building to provide 48 residential units that will be a mix of single room occupancy and studios for older adults. They chose to rehabilitate the existing building, so the newly renovated units will house people over the age of 55 who make less than 30% of the area median income and need supportive services. And they are committed to giving Gladstone residents priority. Construction is to begin in May of 2021 with a tentative completion in the spring of 2022. We amended chapters 17.10 and 17.12 zoning text amendments of the Gladstone Municipal Code relating to R5, which is residential lots of 5,000 square feet, and R7.2, which are residential lots of 7,200 square feet, as well as accessory dwelling units, sometimes referred to as ADUs, to become compliant with House Bill 2001. We completed the Gladstone Housing Needs Analysis public presentations. We held our annual severely rent burdened public hearing. And for those that don't understand what that means, severely rent burdened are those folks that pay more than 50% of their income for rent. Second, are milestones related to communication with the public. The Trolley Trail Bridge feasibility study was completed. The outcome included 5 alternatives, which were sent to the community for public feedback. This bridge would replace the abandoned Trolley Trail Railroad Bridge, which collapsed in 2014, crossing the Clackamas River in the city of Gladstone at the same location. The city was awarded federal grant funding to study the feasibility of replacing the Trolley Trail Bridge for pedestrian and bicycle safety, as well as first responder access during a disaster. We entered into a regional wastewater system cooperative agreement to address outstanding issues pertaining to governance of regional wastewater systems. We participated in regional conversations regarding Gladstone position on the I-205 tolling. We held a listening session on social justice, equity, and inclusion. We approved a resolution condemning violence and racism directed at Black African Americans and all people of color, and affirming the city of Gladstone's commitment to equity. We improved our social media platforms and website to enhance communications with the public. Third, our accomplishments investing in our infrastructure and facilities. We completed a reconstruct on East Clarendon Street, completed the final phase of the Meldrum Bar Park dredging project, implemented text amendments to Title 17 to reduce off-street parking requirements for our new library, approved a lease agreement for the Gladstone Fire Department office space located on Portland Avenue across from the station, which was identified in the Gladstone Fire Department strategic plan, entered into an agreement with Water and Environmental Services, also called WES, for addressing infiltration and inflow, also referred to as I&I, source identification and rehabilitation program, consistent with stipulations in the Oregon Department of Environmental Quality, referred to as DEQ, Mutual Agreement Order. The Gladstone Library Planning Task Force and Clackamas County Board of Commissioners unanimously approved the Gladstone Library Master Plan. The preferred design alternative has a public plaza and corner entry at the intersection of Portland Avenue and East Dartmouth Street to create a strong civic presence in downtown Gladstone. This design will take advantage of public spaces that wrap around a light-filled interior courtyard, providing an indoor-outdoor experience for the patrons. The interior spaces are efficiently organized to accommodate all of the necessary library functions in a 6,000 square foot space. Throughout the year, Public Works, Administration, and Legal Counsel met with Oak Lodge Water Services District to discuss items that need to be addressed in a new permanent agreement. Oak Lodge Water Services District and the City of Gladstone each own and operate a sanitary sewer collection system and a water distribution system in Clackamas County. A portion of the district's water and sewer systems are located within the corporation limits of the city, with the systems currently serving customers who are considered residents of the city. Both entities are interested in updating roles and responsibilities for providing utility services and also considering transferring certain sewer customers from the city to the district and vice versa. We expect this work to be completed in 2021. For many years, Gladstone invested little or nothing in maintaining, updating, or replacing infrastructure. Small rate increases or no increases at all in some years meant Gladstone's rates didn't even keep up with inflation. That led to serious deficiencies in the integrity of the utility systems. To address these problems, Gladstone City Council committed to catching up on infrastructure needs to maintain the health and long-term vibrancy of the city by addressing the need for rate increases. This was not an easy decision to make, and we spent years hearing from staff and experts hired to study exactly what we need and how to pay for it. We ended up taking a very conservative increase approach, resulting in a 100-year replacement cycle. This was done because of the community outreach we completed and the resulted recommendation from citizens. The City of Gladstone adopted the second year of phased-in rate increases, which is the final year of the significant increases. Our proudest accomplishment was the completion of the new Gladstone Civic Center located on Portland Avenue. The Gladstone Civic Center is the new home for the police department and City Hall, built on a 2-acre vacant site that is next to the city's public works facility. The building is safer, built to comply with, and in some circumstances surpass up-to-date earthquake standards. Gladstone residents should feel safer knowing their police department and emergency services can continue to operate in case of a major seismic event. The Civic Center is the city's first building to be constructed using the streamlined progressive design-build approach, under which the design-build team is fully responsible for delivering the project on time and on budget. The funding for the building is from the Gladstone Urban Renewal Agency, along with full faith and credit notes and cash reserves. No additional property tax dollars are required. The project cost was $13.5 million, and we moved in on time and within budget. Fourth, we identified a brand message for Gladstone by developing a new Gladstone brand and tourism strategy, and we'll be launching elements in the community. Fifth, our accomplishments regarding resources for our parks. Throughout the year, the City Council, Parks and Rec Board, and staff researched various options to implement and provide resources to the parks budget, and provided direction for staff to implement a parking fee at Meldrum Bar Park for non-residents in 2021. We sold city surplus property at Clackamas River Drive to provide resources for the parks budget. The City Council, Parks and Rec Board, and staff completed a process for the Nature Park Master Plan, which is the park off of Webster and Oakfield Roads. This will guide the future development of the neighborhood park as a park and outdoor recreation facility. The master plan provides the guiding concept for the design and development of park improvements to enable the appropriate balance between conservation and recreation as a facility within the city's park system. In March of 2020, the global pandemic drastically changed how local governments provided services for the remainder of the year, and continuing now into 2021. We are amazed with our ability to provide continuity of services given the COVID-19 pandemic challenges. Here are the ways that we were able to assist our community. We launched COVID emergency business assistant matching funds. We implemented a parklet pilot program in outdoor dining and retail and private parking lots program due to COVID. The Clackamas County Food Distribution Program needed space to move the countywide food distribution program during the COVID pandemic. The city entered into an IGA with Clackamas County to use our Gladstone Senior Center. There is sufficient space for the county to store food and needed supplies, as well as assemble 400 to 500 boxes per week for delivery using COVID safety protocols. The city entered into agreement with St. Vincent de Paul, Portland Council, to administer assistance to City of Gladstone residents in financial distress due to the COVID pandemic. The emergency assistance may be used for utility payments, housing, rent, mortgage payments, and food assistance. And let us not forget that Labor Day weekend, Clackamas County was engulfed in wildfires. We provided regional support for those displaced due to evacuations and maneuvered through poor air quality. Phew, all of this just in the last 12 months, 2020. Every single day, I am amazed at how a staff of so few can accomplish so much, and under the conditions that we were placed in. I would like to say thank you to our administrative staff, the folks in Public Works, the police department, fire department, senior center, and library. You are the boots on the ground that make this city work. I would like to thank the leaders that absolutely knock it out of the park every single day, keeping us safe, healthy, and constantly moving forward. And that's City Administrator Jackie Betts, Fire Chief John Schmerber, Public Works Director Jim Wynott, Fire Chief Rick Huffman, Senior Center Director Colin Black, and the Gladstone Library District Director Mitzi Olson. You were all tested in ways that would have had most people running, but you stayed at your own risk and made sure we were all okay. Our Emergency Operations Center has certainly been well used this year. We are blessed with this team, and I hope everyone lets you know it. We are now a few months into 2021, and not a lot seems to be changing, but by now I hope we all realize the resiliency found within our village, and to please continue caring for one another. And that's what makes Gladstone the best place to live. So thank you for your time. Everybody be safe, be well, and be kind. That was a long one, guys. We sure did a heck of a lot. Wow. All right, so next is item number 9, to consider approval of the 2021 and 2022 City Council goals. Staff?
Thank you, Mayor Stemple. Good evening, City Council. It was quite a year, and I'm very proud of the management team that we have here in Gladstone and the support from the elected officials. As part of that, we met in January to have a City Council goal setting session. It gave you an opportunity to meet the management and to get an understanding of the projects that we're working on and where our focus needs to be for the next 2 years. So tonight, we would like the City Council to consider formally adopting the work plan for the next 2 years. In the City Council is 6 areas of focus that I will call out. The rest of the items in the packet are areas of where management will focus its time as we're able to. So for the City Council goals for 2021 and 2022, our main focus is to return to the pre-COVID-19 operations citywide as allowed by federal, state, and county officials. Prioritize and take the next steps of the city's community development initiative, which include implementation of the city's downtown revitalization plan, completing the housing code audit and make changes mandated by HB 2001, complete and adopt the housing needs analysis and the community engagement strategy. The next goal is to secure resources to support Parks Board work plan, increase level of services. We have bulleted some major projects to construct and implement the parking fee station at Meldrum Bar Park, to do a site plan at Meldrum Bar Park, to update user fees for sports at Meldrum Bar Park, to have a Max Patterson Parks pickleball courts renovation project, and to look at our shelter rental fees at Meldrum Bar Park. The next goal is to initiate the planning, design, financing, and construction of a public works facility upgrade to meet critical facility requirements and support increased demands and staff needs. The next goal is to sustain our current service levels in the Gladstone Fire Department and its ability to meet its standards of covered objectives. And the final one will be to restart the charter review process. All of these goals received support from the City Council, and once that they are approved, staff will begin working on an implementation plan of when we expect to bring these back to the City Council. So with that, if there's any questions, I'm happy to answer.
All right, Councillor Todd, any questions or concerns?
No, I feel like we really went over this during the strategic planning and I feel very comfortable with it. Thank you.
Councillor Hartman?
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Administrator Betts. This is awesome. Just a couple of things. And it was more just to let the people know about the public works and like the word upgrade. It's like, I want people to know that it's not like an upgrade to get all fancy. Like they really, really just need these facility requirements. I just wanted to clarify that. And then the only other comment I had was in to our, commitment as elected leaders. I think it's fantastic that we are doing this. I think it's great. I just wanted to kind of have a discussion about how we're going to proceed should one of us not hold up to or consistently practice these commitments. Like what is to happen is kind of my question. We've seen in some like recent local news that you can have resolutions and you can have these commitments, yet when someone goes against them, nothing really happens. So it's really just performative, which is fine. But I think it should be clear that this is performative and that no, personal growth might happen, So how are we as a council going to hold each other accountable, for these commitments? We're all human, bound to slip up at some point, So what happens, if I slip up or, and if someone, doesn't follow our commitment, are we ready as a council to say, hey, I really don't feel like, you set a positive, encouraging or a positive example of encouraging collaboration. Are we ready to accept and hear that constructive criticism? Because if we're not, then it is just performative and that's fine. But I think people need to understand that. So that's kind of my question, if we can have a conversation about that.
All right, thank you. We do have council roles. Have you read the council roles? So there's
I got them right here.
Some of that is in there.
Okay.
And yeah, so there are some things that certainly should be fine-tuned, but the process is in there. Okay, Councillor Alexander.
Oh, I have nothing.
Councillor Ripley.
I don't have anything.
Councillor Tracy.
Questions, thank you.
Councillor Garlington. It should be working.
I'm good.
You're good? Okay. The only thing that I had is under commitment as elected leaders. It says respect one another. And I would like that to be expanded to also include respect staff and community members. Because it's not just us, it's all the way around. So I don't know how everybody feels about that.
Mayor, this is Councillor Tracy. Now I think we're in a discussion. So let's talk about that, because I think Councillor Hartman just brought up the point that this is, if you're going to implement these particular commitments, then we need to be able to implement those. Now we're talking about whether or not potentially a councillor is respecting or disrespecting a staff member or citizens. I'd have to go back to Councillor Hartman's original question. If these are performative measures, then there really is no reason to continue adding on to this list of performative measures. If these are indeed implementable measures that we're going to hold each other accountable to, we probably need to discuss what it all means as we go forward doing that. Otherwise, basically, we've got an evaluation or criteria set here, and nobody's going to be able to meet that necessarily because it's pretty subjective.
Okay, well, Councillor Hartman did add a couple things also. What was it, the transparent one? So a couple things were added, and I'm just adding an additional one, but apparently that's not okay.
I think it's okay to add it. It's just that what does it mean? I mean, that's what we're trying to, I think that's what we're trying to establish. You can say that that one of our commitments is to not be disrespectful to staff or the citizens, but what does that mean to the governing body? I think that's the question at hand.
Okay, anybody have any comments? I guess respecting other people is pretty cut and dry in my book, but not to others. So anybody have any comments?
I wonder.
I think going along with an S and go ahead.
No, go ahead, Councilor Ripley.
I'm going on with Matt and Nessa's that we are held accountable, but it's only by the voters. So I think being proactive to come up with something to hold each other accountable, I think is a really good idea. Instead of waiting for 4 years for the voters to come back and hold us accountable, because that can be a little too long of a period sometimes. So I agree with both you two. I think it's a good idea to look into something on how we hold each other accountable for everything we do.
Thank you,
That's all I
Mr.
got.
Arlington. Thank you.
I just wonder if getting into the council rules at another time might be better than rehashing these that we spent 2.5 days or 2 days working on. I can't remember the timeline, sorry. Not that I'm against adding anything. I just like how this was written.
Councilor Alexander, you were saying something?
I think maybe a work session with us counselors. Yes, that's something that does need to be addressed. I know for a fact in the past, people weren't being held accountable for certain things. So that would be great to start doing that. Yeah, because there's rules, and if you read them, and I guess it depends on how you interpret them, because, you know, this is pretty cut and dry to me, but that's just, so I think it does need to be addressed, but not here right now, I don't think.
So then should we go ahead and approve the, what are we gonna do? The general council goals, and then not approve commitment as elected officials and discuss that later? Or what would you guys like to do? Approve it as written, because there were a couple things added from since our strategic planning session.
So, Mayor,
Yes, Councilor Tracy.
I'm assuming we want to move this forward together as a document. So, I mean, I think you could go with the friendly amendment, and I'm going to go on the record to say I'm not opposed to adding to this. I just, again, it's just like, what are you using as an instrument of measure, and what are you using as a remedy in this case if something happens? And that's all I'm asking. So I could say that we could go with a friendly amendment to the additions, approve this, and as a council, we could agree as a governing body to come back to a work session and talk about that topic that I think Councilor Hartman and I both brought up, and that's totally fine. So I'd be willing, if somebody wanted to go with a motion, I could give a friendly amendment as a second to include those items that you and I believe Councilor Hartman would like to include in the document.
Okay. Would someone like to make a motion then?
I'd make that motion.
To approve with the additions, friendly amendments.
I'll give the second. I'll give the second as a friendly amendment, Mayor, with those additions, the addition that you outlined and the addition that Councilor Hartman wanted to insert into the document.
Okay, so motion was made by Councilor Alexander, seconded by Councilor Tracy to accept it as written with the addition of respect staff and community members.
Correct. And now Councilor Hartman's language is already in the document. Is that correct?
Yep, it's already in the document.
Thank you, Mayor. So I would say that would be a good something to move forward.
All right. Okay, first and second, any further discussion? Councilor Todd, questions, concerns?
Well, I just think that if we're going to move forward on this and sort of expand on it, I would like a work session. And I know it's difficult for us all to meet in person, but it's been done, you know, during strategic planning. I feel like it's a lot easier to have these conversations when we're all in the room, and it's just easier, I think. So I'd like it to be that type of a setting if I could, or at least put it on the record that I'd like that.
Okay. Councilor Ripley?
If we approve everything the way it is written right now, and we have a work session in a few months to figure this out, my question would be to Jackie on how much extra work is that if we approve it and then go change it to reapprove something different? Is that, or would it be easier to separate it and approve part now and a part later? What will be the easiest book wise, paper trail wise?
What I'm understanding is that the city council wants to go ahead and approve the city council goals for 21 and 22. And I think you all also agree with the vision, the mission, the core values, and the commitment as elected leaders. I think that can all be approved tonight, but you want to talk about it, how you're going to hold each other accountable in a future work session. So I think you can go ahead and approve that tonight, and then we can have that conversation in a work session. I'm not sure when yet, but I will certainly look at what we've got coming up for the next couple of months. But I don't think you need to hold anything up tonight.
All right, thank you. Anything else, Councilor Ripley?
No, that's it. Thank you, Jackie.
Councilor Garlington?
No, I understand now.
Councilor Alexander?
No, that'd be perfect.
Councilor Hartman?
I also agree with Councilor Todd about doing it in person. I think that would be awesome. Just putting that on the record.
Councilor Tracy?
I'm good, Mayor. Thank you for that. And I'm glad we got it straightened out.
All right. So the only thing I have to say is when we do this work session in the future is to please everybody familiarize yourself with the council rules that we already have in place. That way we can fine tune that wherever we need to. So we're not creating it from scratch. All right, Tammy, could you do a roll call vote, please?
Councilor Tracy?
Aye.
Councilor Hartman?
Aye.
Councilor Todd?
Yes.
Councilor Garlington?
Yes.
Councilor Ripley?
Yes.
Councilor Alexander?
Yes.
Mayor Stemple?
Yes. Council goals have passed. Next item is 10, Ordinance 1508, approving the Gladstone Housing Needs Analysis for years 2021 through 2041. Staff?
Thank you, Mayor, City Council. This is the last step in a very long process that we have gone through publicly. At your last meeting on February 23rd, you held the public hearing to consider adopting the 2021 Housing Needs Analysis, which is to amend the inventory section of the Gladstone Comprehensive Plan. We have gone through a very public process with the Planning Commission and the public. And tonight we are asking you to go ahead and to approve the ordinance. I want to say thank you to the Department of Land and Conservation Development for granting Gladstone the funding to do this. It would have been very difficult for us to do our housing needs analysis without that funding. So Jennifer, thank you very much. And with that, I think what we're asking you tonight in your packet is if somebody wants to move to approve an ordinance adopting the 2021 Housing Needs Analysis, amending the inventory section of the Gladstone Comprehensive Plan, and updating appendices in the comprehensive plan.
All right. Questions? Councilor Tracy, questions or concerns?
None for me at this time, Mayor. Thanks.
Councilor Garlington.
None for me.
Councilor Hartman.
None for me, thank you.
Councilor Alexander.
I have none.
Councilor Ripley.
No questions.
Councilor Todd.
Not at this time, thank you.
I have none. So would someone like to make a motion, please?
I will. I'd like to make the motion to approve an ordinance 1508, an ordinance adopting the 2021 housing needs analysis, amending the inventory section of the Gladstone Comprehensive Plan.
And the last was an updating appendices. What was it, Jackie?
Updating appendices in the comprehensive plan.
And updating the appendices in the comprehensive.
Thank you.
I'll second it.
Motion was made by Councillor Todd and seconded by Councillor Garlington. Do we have any further discussion? I don't see anybody raising their hand. So Tammy, could you do a roll call vote, please?
Councillor Hartman.
Aye.
Councillor Todd.
Yes.
Councillor Garlington.
Yes.
Councillor Ripley.
Yes.
Councillor Alexander.
Yes.
Councillor Tracy.
Aye.
Mayor Stemple.
Yes. Ordinance 1508 has passed.
Now
Next.
we get to do the second reading because all of you approved it tonight.
Oh, so this one is a second reading. I thought it was just 12, 13, and 14. All right, so ordinance 1508, hold on. Let me write that down so I know we did a second reading. All right. All right, so number 10, second reading, ordinance 1508, approving the Gladstone housing needs analysis for 2021-2041. Consider approving ordinance 1508, an ordinance approving the Gladstone housing needs analysis. And of course, I don't have that written down, and updating appendices in the comprehensive plan. Any questions or concerns? Would someone like to make a motion, please?
I'll make a motion that we approve ordinance 1508 and an ordinance adopting the 2021 housing needs analysis, amending the inventory section of the Gladstone Comprehensive Plan and updating the appendices in the comprehensive plan.
Perfect.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Motion was made by Councillor Garlington and seconded in tandem by Councillor Alexander and Councillor Hartman. Do we have any further discussion, questions, or concerns? I don't see any hands raised. Could you do a roll call vote, please, Tammy?
Councillor Hartman.
Aye.
Councillor Todd.
Yes.
Councillor Garlington.
Yes.
Councillor Ripley.
Yes.
Councillor Alexander.
Yes.
Councillor Tracy.
Aye.
Mayor Stemple.
Aye. So ordinance 1508 has passed via the second reading. All right, next is number 11. Consider approving the City of Gladstone Community Engagement Strategy Housing Zoning Code Project. Staff.
So congratulations on passing the housing needs analysis. The next step is to approve the housing code rewrite community engagement strategy. You also were presented this at your February 23rd meeting. There was some recommended changes and I just want to call those out. It was to include lower income seniors in the engagement process, include military veterans, include those that speak languages other than English and military veterans, include Unite Oregon, faith-based organizations, the school district, and other community-based organizations as community partners. In your packet, we provided you a tracked changes so that you would see where we made those additions. And if the city council wants to adopt this engagement strategy tonight, then we will finalize our request for proposals and go out next week to start soliciting a consultant to begin this work.
So exciting, moving all of these big projects forward. It's great. Do we have any questions or concerns? I'll start with Councillor Alexander.
I have none.
Councillor Ripley.
No.
Councillor Tracy.
None for me, Mayor.
Councillor Garlington.
I just have one question. It says here that you're going to, the city will seek to partner with the Gladstone School District, the Unite Oregon faith-based institutions. Is that the ones within Gladstone, or you're going out to Clackamas County?
We will primarily focus on Gladstone, but Clackamas County does have some organizations that they can help us engage other people in Gladstone's with. But the primary focus is Gladstone.
Could I just ask that you put on there faith-based institutions within Gladstone and Clackamas County, rather than trying to find somebody in Salem?
Is that it?
That's it.
Councillor Hartman, questions?
Thank you.
Councillor Todd?
I was just wondering why military veterans was put in there twice. I mean, they do speak their own language sometimes, but I was just wondering where the line were on that.
No, I'm sure that was a typo that it was included on the bullet.
Sorry, very true Marine. So I was just like going, yeah, they do, but no, I'm fine with everything else.
Oh, no, they don't.
All right, thank you. Any other questions or concerns? Would someone like to make a motion, please?
I'll make a motion.
All right.
I make a motion to approve the Housing Code Rewrite Community Engagement Strategy.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion was made by Councillor Hartman and seconded by Councillors Garlington and Todd. Any further discussion, questions, or concerns? I don't see any hands. Tammy, could you do a roll call vote, please?
Councillor Todd?
Yes.
Councillor Garlington?
Yes.
Councillor Ripley?
Yes.
Councillor Alexander?
Yes.
Councillor Tracy?
All right.
Councillor Hartman?
Aye.
Mayor Stemple?
Yes. The City of Gladstone Community Engagement Strategy Housing Zoning Code Project has passed. All right, next is item 12, which is the public hearing for ordinance 1509, amending the Gladstone Municipal Code, referred to as the GMC, chapter 9.49, city parks and city property exclusion. Chad, I did some online researching on what kind of a script I should have for these public hearings that aren't land use based. So I came up with something that's a little bit more consolidated than the last one. So if at any point you think I'm going the wrong direction, let me know. So this hearing will begin with the staff report, followed by questions from council. For anyone wishing to speak, the deadline to submit your request was noon today. However, since this is a public hearing, we will allow additional comments as they arise. As a reminder, each speaker has 3 minutes. Councilors, do you believe that you can make a decision on this issue in an impartial manner? Councillor Alexander?
Yes.
Councillor Ripley?
Yes.
Councillor Garlington?
Yes.
Councillor Todd?
Yes.
Councillor Hartman?
Yes.
Councillor Tracy?
Before I answer, I saw that the city attorney.
I know, I saw Chad waving his hand. Yes, Chad. You're muted.
There it goes. Sorry, I'm having all kinds of problems with my camera tonight. So just one point of clarification, this is a legislative process, not a quasi-judicial process. So you don't have to do the impartiality test or ex parte context as part of the hearing process.
Okay, because I did online and these were legislative ones and they were including this piece, so I can get rid of that. Yep. All right. And then I don't have to do the public challenge piece either?
Correct.
All right. All right, so I now open the public hearing for ordinance 1509, amending the Gladstone Municipal Code, GMC, chapter 9.49, city parks and city property exclusion. It is 7:22 p.m. on March 9th, 2021. This agenda item will be an opportunity to hear and consider testimony on the proposed amendment. Staff report, please.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. At your work session last month, Chief Schmerber and Sergeant Leake provided you an overview of what you would be proposing tonight. So I will ask our police chief to go ahead and give you a summary.
Hi, good evening, Mayor, councilors. Thank you for this opportunity. Again, as Jackie mentioned, over the work session, we discussed Ordinance 1509, amending Gladstone Municipal Code for Chapter 9.49, City Parks and City Property Exclusions. Really, the whole purpose of this ordinance is to bring it up to constitutional standards and really updating the exclusionary process and establishing procedures for notice of appeal for enforcement purposes as needed. And we discussed this, I think, in length during the work session. But as a reminder of the amended ordinance represents the following: the rights of homeless individuals in the city of Gladstone. It meets constitutional requirements and creates a fair and equitable process for issuing park exclusions and the process for appeal. Currently, we don't have that true process for appeal in our language. So I'd be more than happy to answer any questions instead of going through the whole process again, but essentially that's what we're trying to accomplish.
All right, thank you. Questions or concerns from council? We'll start with Councilor Alexander.
I have none.
Councilor Ripley.
I don't have any.
Councilor Garlington.
No questions.
Councilor Tracy.
No questions, Mayor, but I wanted to thank the chief for presenting this to us earlier and being as thorough in his presentation as he was. So yeah, I don't have any questions or concerns tonight.
Thank you.
Councilor Todd.
I have no questions. Thank you.
Councilor Hartman.
No questions. Thank you.
Wonderful. So hearing no further questions from council, we'll begin taking public testimony. We're going to begin with those that signed up by noon today. Tammy, do we have anybody that wishes to speak?
I did not receive any notification requesting to speak regarding this matter.
All right. So now's the opportunity for those attendees who did not have the opportunity to sign up. Is there anyone who wishes to speak on this issue? We'll just hold it open for a minute. I don't see anything or hear anything. So councilors, do you have any further questions or concerns? All right, so does the council wish to close the public hearing or hold it open for additional arguments? Would someone like to make a motion to close the public hearing?
I'll make a motion.
Motion was made by Councilor Alexander. Do we have a second?
Second.
Seconded by Councilor Garlington. Any further discussion? I don't see any hands. Tammy, could you do a roll call vote, please?
Councilor Garlington?
Yes.
Councilor Ripley?
Yes.
Councilor Alexander?
Yes.
Councilor Tracy?
Aye.
Councilor Hartman?
Aye.
Councilor Todd?
Yes.
Mayor Stemple?
Yes. So public hearing for ordinance 1509. We've closed the public hearing. Are there any further discussion? Any questions or concerns?
I think they just make a motion, right, to adopt.
Yep. So would someone like to make a motion?
I'll make a motion to adopt ordinance 1509, amending Gladstone Municipal Code, Chapter 9.49, City Parks and Property Exclusion.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Motion was made by Councilor Alexander and seconded by Councilor Todd. Any further discussion? Tammy, could you do a roll call vote, please?
Councilor Garlington?
Yes.
Councilor Ripley?
Yes.
Councilor Alexander?
Yes.
Councilor Tracy?
Aye.
Councilor Hartman?
Aye.
Counselor Todd,
Yes.
Mayor Stemple.
Yes, it was unanimous, so we can go ahead and do the second reading tonight, right now. Any further discussion on this item? Any additional staff comments? Nope. Will someone make a motion, please?
Can you make a motion twice? Can I do it again? Or
Yes, you can.
I make a motion that we adopt ordinance 1509, amending Gladstone Municipal Code, Chapter 9.49, City Parks and Property Exclusion.
I'll second it. Okay.
Motion was made by Counselor Alexander and seconded by Counselors Todd and Tracy. Any further discussion? I'm going to say that a lot tonight. I'm sorry, folks. Tammy, could you do a roll call vote, please?
Counselor Garlington?
Yes.
Counselor Ripley?
Yes.
Counselor Alexander?
Yes.
Counselor Tracy?
Aye.
Counselor Hartman?
Aye.
Counselor
Yes.
Todd? Mayor Stemple?
Yes. Ordinance 1509 has passed. Next is item 13, which is a public hearing for ordinance 1510, amending the Gladstone Municipal Code, referred to as the GMC, chapter 9.60, camping prohibited in certain places. We're going to follow the same format as item 12. So I now open the public hearing for ordinance 1510, amending the Gladstone Municipal Code, GMC, chapter 9.60, camping prohibited in certain places. It is 7:29 p.m. on March 9th, 2021. This agenda item will be an opportunity to hear and consider testimony on the proposed amendment. Staff report, please.
Thank you. Sorry, Jackie.
You're fine.
Thank you again for the opportunity. Again, this is the other ordinance brought before you on the work session. Ordinance 1510, amending Gladstone Municipal Code, Chapter 9.60, camping prohibited in certain places. Again, not to get into all the details as we did and the thoroughness of the work session. The purpose behind amending this chapter is define rules for resting on public property and recommend reducing prohibiting camping from a Class B violation to a Class C violation, which would also fall in line with the other park rules. Amending this ordinance represents the following. Again, the rights of homeless individuals in the city of Gladstone. It does meet constitutional requirements, allows areas in the city for homeless camping as required, establishes rules for camping in the city that meet constitutional standards, and creates a fair and equitable process for issuing park exclusions and process of appeal. So it's a kind of a combination of both kind of almost go hand in hand, but they're still separate.
All right, thank you. Are there any questions or concerns from council? We'll start with Councilor Garlington.
On section, or what's a SOT? That's what I want to know. SOTs. It says it's talking about camp paraphernalia, but the only thing I could find for SOTs is a drunkard. So I'm just not sure what kind of paraphernalia a SOT is. I'm just educate me here.
Chad, can you help me out real quick? I'm trying to find it.
Yeah, I believe that's a typo. I think it's supposed to be cot with a C.
Cot. Okay.
Okay.
Yes, it should be cot.
Got it. Never mind.
Your understanding the term SOT is correct.
Okay. Thank you.
I thought maybe someone snuck some language in there on me that I wasn't aware of.
As long as we're looking at typos, I'd also like to point out that it looks like in section 9.60.020, subsection B, when you're talking about camping on city property during the hours of 6:30 a.m. to 9:30 a.m., I believe you intended that to be 9:30 p.m.
Yes, correct, 9:30 p.m.
Yeah, so those are two typos that you'll want to fix if you decide to approve the ordinance tonight.
Thank you.
All right, Councilor Tracy.
I can't top that. Thanks, Mayor.
Councilor Ripley.
I don't have any questions.
Councilor Alexander.
None.
Counselor Todd?
None, thank you.
Counselor Hartman?
No questions. I just want everyone to know that's watching now and just give your team a shout out, Chief Schmerber, for treating our houseless folks with empathy, that they helped out 3 folks with finding permanent housing. And I think that that's fantastic. And I just wanted to let everyone know that you guys did that here tonight. So
Thank you. I will definitely pass that on.
All right, hearing no further questions from council, we're going to begin taking public testimony. And that will begin with those that signed up by noon today. Tammy, do we have anybody that signed up to speak?
We do not, Mayor.
All right, so now is an opportunity for those that didn't sign up to speak if they would like. So please let us know. I'm not quite sure how. Tammy, do they raise their hands or how do they let you know?
They can raise their hand.
Okay. I don't see anybody. So counselors, do you have any further questions or concerns? Nope. Does the council wish to close the public hearing or hold it open to allow for additional arguments? Would someone like to make a motion, please, to close the public hearing?
I'll make a motion to close the public hearing.
Second.
Motion was made by Counselor Todd and seconded by Counselor Tracy to close the public hearing. Do we have any further discussion on that? I don't see anything. Tammy, could you do a roll call vote, please?
Counselor Todd?
Yes.
Counselor Hartman?
Aye.
Counselor Tracy?
Aye.
Counselor Alexander?
Yes.
Counselor Ripley?
Yes.
Counselor Garlington?
Yes.
Mayor Stemple?
Yes. Public hearing is closed at 7:35 p.m. Counselors, do we have any further discussion on this item? Don't see anything. Would someone like to make a motion to approve ordinance 1510?
I'll make a motion that we approve ordinance 1510, amending the Gladstone Municipal Code GMC Chapter 9.60, camping prohibited in certain places with 2 typo corrections.
I'll second that.
Motion was made by Counselor Garlington, seconded by Counselor Alexander. Any further discussion? I don't see any hands. Tammy, could you do a roll call vote, please?
Counselor Todd?
Yes.
Counselor Hartman?
Aye.
Counselor Tracy?
Aye.
Counselor Alexander?
Yes.
Counselor Ripley?
Yes.
Counselor Garlington?
Yes.
Mayor Stemple?
Yes. It was unanimous, so we can move forward with the second reading. Do we have any further discussion on this issue? I don't see any hands. Would someone like to make a motion to approve ordinance 1510?
I'll make the motion to approve ordinance 1510, amending Gladstone Municipal Code GMC Chapter 9.60, camping prohibited in certain places.
I'll second.
Motion was made by Counselor Alexander, seconded by Counselor Hartman. Do we have any further discussion?
Just
Tammy,
that we add the 2 additional corrections.
Typos. Tammy, could you do a roll call vote, please?
Counselor Garlington?
Yes.
Counselor Todd?
Yes.
Counselor Hartman?
Aye.
Counselor Tracy?
Aye.
Counselor Alexander?
Yes.
Counselor Ripley?
Yes.
Mayor Stemple?
Yes, ordinance 1510 has passed. Thank you. Next is item 14, which is a public hearing for resolution 1190. Resolution updating the master fee schedule for park user fees. We're going to use the same format as items 12 and 13. So I now open the public hearing for resolution 1190, a resolution updating the master fee schedule for park user fees. It is 7:37 p.m. on March 9th, 2021. This agenda item will be an opportunity to hear and consider testimony on the proposed, resolution. Staff report, please.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. This item before you has been in progress since 2017, 2018, 2019, when the Parks and Recreation Board was challenged for trying to help the city council find resources for its parks. Then we had COVID hit and our park system kind of came to a halt. And tonight it's a difficult conversation to have to you about our desire to implement and update the park's user fees for the city ball fields. And I wanted to be clear, this has not the discussion around the parking fee at Meldrum Bar Park. That will come at a later date. The discussion tonight is to update our master fee for user fees for the use of city ball fields. And so with that, I'm going to ask Public Works Consultant Jim Wynot to go ahead and walk you through the staff report.
Thank you, Jackie, and good evening, Mayor Semple and City Council. What we're here to talk about is updating the master fee schedule, specifically park user fees and ball field use fees. This work began back in 2017 when the city updated its parks master plan, and it was also adopted in 2017. The Parks and Rec Board did a lot of research on this. They evaluated park user fees in surrounding areas, other cities and park districts. And in 2019, the Parks Board invited the community users and user groups, which many, if not all of them, attended a Parks Board meeting at one point or another in 2019. And they were able to provide their input on user fees. The proposed changes to the user fees are what staff and Parks Board believe to be fair and comparable with the surrounding cities. Based on the previous ball field use, staff estimates this generating approximately $22,000 a year for the Parks Board or the Parks budget. What would this do for our Parks budget? This would really allow us to continue doing what we've been doing, providing the current level of service. It's not going to add a lot. $22,000, for example, is going to support the revenue enough to hire one seasonal that we have working in our parks. That's about what that generates. Just some of the numbers to kind of compare us with other cities as far as our budget. You know, Gladstone's budget for our parks department is approximately $1.3 million, which is about 7% of the overall general fund. If you were to compare that to Oregon City and Westland, for example, Oregon City's parks budget is $9.8 million, approximately 17% of their general fund budget. And in Westland, $9.4 million, also 17% of their budget. So in comparative, our parks budget is really, really low and really, really hurting for some revenue. So this is one of those things that's going to help with that. And in staff comparisons, for example, while I was looking up that information, Gladstone currently has 2.45 full-time employees in our parks budget. Westland has 21.25. Oregon City, 35.85 employees for the City of Oregon City's Parks Department. So, you know, just try to put those in comparisons to kind of help you get the overall picture here. With that, staff recommends council adopting the master fee schedule with these changes and open it up to any questions anybody has.
All right, thank you. Any questions or concerns from council? We'll start with Councilor Tracy.
No, I don't have questions or concerns. I guess I do have questions. So Director Wynot, when you do the comparatives, everybody is collecting their fee. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, so they're
all the other cities and parks. The North Clackamas County Park Commission is one we use. Yeah.
Have they given you any administrative costs associated with that? I'm just gonna guess it's gonna be negligible or de minimis, small costs.
Yeah, no, I didn't get that deep into breaking it out.
Okay, would you do me one more favor? Would you tell me again what percentage of our general fund budget the parks take up for City of Gladstone?
For the City of Gladstone, it's 7% of our general fund.
And I believe if City Recorder Tammy Bannett can pull up a graphic that we have for you, Councilor Tracy, to illustrate that.
Yeah, I caught the other two cities. I didn't catch Gladstone's. So thank you. No further questions. Thanks.
So are you able to see the pie chart?
Well, kind of, I'm blind, so.
I guess the point we wanted to illustrate with this is that we have a total general fund of 18.5 million, and the parks budget is only allocated 1.25 million. So there's a sliver, 7% of the general fund that is allocated to the parks. And then the other slide that we have is to show you the comparable areas that we looked at, which includes Oregon City, NCPRD, which is North Clackamas Park District, Happy Valley, and Wilsonville. NCPRD also is in Milwaukee, so that is our neighboring competitors there, and that the rental fees that we are proposing are comparable to what those cities have already been doing for years.
Can I ask one more question, Mayor?
Yes.
So Director Wynot, do we have any opportunities? I mean, if we're looking at revenue, obviously, and bolstering the revenue for the parks and certainly for these play areas or these sports fields, do we have like commercial opportunities with regard to revenue streams through commercialization, advertising, et cetera, during these tournaments? Or do the clubs that come in and use these fields, are they capturing the commercial viability of potentially advertising during their tournaments?
I don't have an answer for you on that. The city does not do that. Can we? It's possible. And whether the ball teams do that or not, I do not know. I believe I am aware that they put up signs and billboards and stuff on the, mats or whatever on the fences and stuff like that and advertise, but I haven't attended one of the games myself.
Yeah, so as an elected official in a town who's talking about raising some rates and charging some clubs and some teams money for coming in, it would be good for us to know, because if anybody else is taking advantage of a commercialization opportunity with regard to advertising, while we discuss these rates and fees, really that should be going to the city, because that might ameliorate some of these rates and fees and some structuring if we're looking at it financially. So I'm curious about that, because I have been by those fields and have seen banners up from companies, and I'm curious about who's potentially collecting. If it's not just straight sponsorship across the line, is that an opportunity for the city? A is the first question. And then B, if it's an opportunity for the city and somebody else is gaining on that opportunity, we need to probably talk about that too, because I think that is going to be part of this conversation as we talk about raising fees.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you.
Okay, Councilor Garlington.
The only question I had was, it said that the asterisk was the resident team comprised of at least 80% of Gladstone residents. So when you talk about a tournament, so is the team resident or non-resident based on who signed up for the tournament, or I guess that's it. That's my question.
I can answer that one, and that would be the resident team that has signed up for the tournament.
Okay. Thank you. That's all I have.
Councilor Ripley.
I have a couple of thoughts. My first thought is adding these fees, that does take fees away from other people who don't use the parks. They shouldn't be paying the fees maybe. But I'm wondering, have we looked at like the soccer field reservation at $5 an hour? Have we looked at how much that would cost one team? I coached for like 13 years. And so I've had 13 different teams that we'd practice twice a week and we'd have games once a week. So what would that total financial cost be to the amount of practices they have and games they have per season? What's that impact going to be on the players on those individual teams is my question. Yeah, we looked at
that would, oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I just wonder if we've talked to the Soccer Association or the Softball Association to see if they've done the math on how much it would cost them and how much they'd have to pass that on to the players.
Well, I know we did a comparison based on past practices. This is what Tammy put together on the mathematic part of it, of what this would cost. So I don't know if, Tammy, you broke it out by soccer versus softball versus baseball to know what specifically the soccer would be paying for this. I don't know. It depends on how many games they do. If a team's going out there and using the field for an hour and they're charging them $5, I don't know how they would pay for that. If they'd pay for it, the team together would pay the $5, or everybody paid 25 cents, to make the $5. I don't know how they're going to generate the revenue on their end. I know some softball and baseball leagues to go out and do fundraising to help pay for field rental. I don't know if that answers your question specifically. And Tammy, if you could add anything, that'd be great.
So basically the information that was accumulated here to bring up the total there was based on, in the staff report, it talks about 6 baseball teams. Let me pull that up here just a moment. This information was from 2019. So it was based on 6 resident baseball teams, 6 resident softball teams, and 20 residents, 20 resident soccer teams. The baseball, softball were based on 2-hour games and 2-hour practices. And the soccer was based on 1-hour game and 1-hour practices. And that's a total estimate, again, was based on previous use as to how they've been previously utilized. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, pretty much. I'm just wondering if it'd been broken. I think my biggest question is if somebody's kid goes to sign up, how much more is that going to cost them now by adding these park fees in there?
Councilor Ripley,
a lot of the groups do have scholarships for people who can't afford to play sports, but to make sure we keep our kids out there running around, we have to make sure we don't price ourselves out of the sporting business here.
Jackie, City Administrator, you were saying something?
I believe you have public comment tonight that might be able to answer Councilor Ripley's question.
Okay. Councilor Alexander?
Yeah, I have a couple, because you were just comparing Gladstone to Oregon City and them and the other cities around us. And then you said right there at the end, they've been doing this for years. So they've been getting this revenue, and you're comparing it to us who hasn't been getting this revenue. So I don't know how accurate those numbers would be if you did it that way. And I want to understand, this is not, there's a fee to get in the park, I understand, but this isn't an individual thing, right? The baseball team, like Gladstone's going to go play Oregon City. We have to pay money to Oregon City to take care of their field, and we have to reserve it. I'm trying to understand how this works. I've never in my whole life, my daughter, my nieces and nephews, we never personally or paid, or I didn't even know the team's paying other parks or anybody to use their fields. That was part of the city's maintenance on the field. So I just want to understand, it's not an individual charge. And were those comparisons done with, you said, they've been doing it for years. Well, we haven't. So how could you make those comparisons with the money, their percentage in revenue, when we haven't done it? So that was my concern.
So no, it's not an individual fee, it's a team fee. How the team collects that money with their group can maybe be answered from public comment. The city has always had these fees in their master fee schedule. They just never charged them. And the data that we have shown you tonight that's comparable is recent data from the competitors. Okay,
well, they've been doing it and we haven't been doing it. That's why I say the comparison doesn't, it seems, you know, if they've been doing it and getting this revenue and we haven't, that's what we're comparing it to, what they're getting or what we're going to get. I see what I'm saying. I don't understand what the comparison is.
When you compare revenue to your neighbors, you look at what the surrounding areas are charging to use their parks.
Okay.
That's all we're looking at. We're not looking at how much revenue they bring in. We're only looking at how much they charge, because you want it to be equitable. Gladstone has a regional park where they haven't been charging their users to use that. A lot of teams come and they can monopolize the fields out there that way. This kind of makes it an equal playing ground to where people pay, they reserve the fields, and it is not an inordinate amount that is above what your neighbors are charging for that service. And Gladstone City Council just needs to decide whether or not you could choose that you don't want to charge the fees, or you could choose that you do want to. And that's the decision that is before you tonight.
Okay, I guess that just leads to one more question. Why now? Why haven't we been doing it like the other cities, and why all of a sudden now are we doing it?
I think because the city council back in 2019 identified that finding revenue for our parks is a priority, because we don't have any maintenance funds for that. And like Jim Wynot mentioned, that we only have 2.45 employees out there. And so we have to find ways to increase the revenue in order for us to continue to maintain our services. This is one way of doing that. And you're putting the burden on the users of your park to help collect that and maintain city services.
Okay, yeah, so I can give another quick example. You know, we spent $7,000 last year on chalk, and we do not recoup that at all. That's just what we do. And they put it down, but the city buys the chalk and supplies that. We spent $7,000 not last year, excuse me, in 2019. Yeah.
Okay. I mean, okay. I just, you know, we haven't been doing it. Now all of a sudden we're going to do it. And I just wanted to understand why. And I didn't want it to be on any individual, because sports is in children and they need that, like Councilor Ridley said. So I don't want to,
Greg, I think one of the other things is, prior, we didn't have good bookkeeping, and the way that Jim's kept track of every second that the guys are working and where the money's going. I think you go back 10, 15 years, and I don't think it was like that. It was Bob Field. It wasn't keeping track of all the people. So now that we have a good record of where all the time is going, that it kind of shapes the parks department, or the people that are doing the park stuff, because now they know what they're actually costing the city.
Okay, yes, that's a good point, Councilor Ripley. Yeah, the one thing we are doing different here in the last 3 or 4 years is we're living within our budget. They never did before. Our parks fund was actually being subsidized by our utilities in the area of staff. You know, so right now we're living within our budget, and we've had to do some cutting back, and you know, less water, and so there's less mowing, less fertilizer, less, just a lot of stuff. To get within our budget. So in a nutshell, I guess you could say we're living within our budget now. That's what's different.
Okay. Thank you.
Councilor Hartman.
Thank you. I have a lot of questions, so sorry in advance. I guess to piggyback on Councilor Alexander's question about why we haven't charged them, I have the same question as well. Like it's on here, so there have been costs. What was the process before? Did someone call in and say, I need to reserve this, or what was it before? And then at that point, why didn't we say it's $60 per day per field?
No idea.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I mean,
that's the big question. That is the big question.
No, Councilor Hartman, your question is valid. And, you know, previous administration, policymakers, it was just something that was never implemented at that time. We don't have an answer for you as to to why not. It wasn't done.
Okay. Because yeah, I mean, I guess, you know, if you looked at the document that, oh, you know, we have had prices in place, but we haven't been enforcing them. I can see why people might be upset, because we are not going from 55 to $60, just using the softball line. You know, we're really going from $0 to $60 to those who have been using our fields. And so the increase on that is huge to those, you know, and I just want us to be mindful of that. I completely understand, based off on just the numbers alone, why we need to do this. I mean, $7,000 in chalk, that's kind of crazy. But sorry, I'm looking at my notes. So in terms of like the hours, right? You know, so on our list, the $60, you know, what are the hours of a tournament? You said it was for 2 hours per game, but what about a tournament? Do we have that time frame?
A tournament is typically for the day. They reserve the field for the day, and they're typically on a Saturday or Sunday, sometimes on a Friday.
Okay, and that tournament is, so it's the tournament organizer will call and say, I want to reserve 3 fields. Is that correct?
That is correct.
And then it would be $180.
That is correct.
Okay.
If it's if it's a resident team, so based on the information that's provided there, yes.
Okay. Okay. And then in terms of soccer field reservations, are there no tournaments for soccer teams?
Historically, the soccer fields had been turned over to the Soccer Association, and they were scheduling their own games. I do not know that they are tournaments. I am only aware of games, and when the Soccer Association speaks, they may be able to answer that for you.
Okay. And then, sorry, excuse me one second. You answered that one. Just as a thought, and since this is 100% new to our residents, creating a sort of a flat fee for those like Soccer Association teams that, you know, have their entire schedule, you know, can they, you know, good night, have a flat fee, you know, can we maybe talk about doing that, since this is new to them, instead of, because they will be using our fields the most, granted, you know, but an idea just to kind of toss out there as we kind of ease this into this fee schedule. More of an open for discussion type of thing, thought, but.
All right, well, we'll move on to Councillor Todd, and I'm sure we'll have additional discussion about that. Councillor Todd.
I just was wondering if anybody knew what it cost, or if there was a cost to rent the football field at the high school, because I was pretty sure after the new turf went down, it had gone from just you reserved it to having to pay for it, and also, you know, show proof of insurance and blah, 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 blah. My husband plays on did play on an adult old man soccer team. And I know that they pay at different schools and local parks a certain amount, and it's worked into their registration. I was just wondering if anybody knew if the school district did charge and how close we would be coming in on something like that.
Yeah, we did not compare with any school districts because they operate a little bit different. So we did not do any comparisons with schools.
Okay.
I have it pulled up here, and it says pay to play fee is $200 per sport. It doesn't give any other information on here yet.
Is that's for the actual students, but if like outside teams come in and you know, an old man league, I don't want to say that, but you know what I mean, renting it for you know, for a Saturday play or something like that. If there's football teams that aren't associated with the school, but you know, flag football through just the city of Gladstone community school. I didn't know there was an amount. Okay.
Okay, well, I played softball all during school, and I coached Little League after I graduated from high school, and every single year we paid a registration fee, and that included exclusive use of the fields. So I'm kind of shocked that Gladstone has never done that. I don't think that we should be tied to what we didn't do in the past. Those fees have been there, and it's time that we start doing our jobs, charging the fees that need to be charged to cover our costs. We have to run a city, and by throwing money out the window is not a good way to run a city. We need to cover our costs. So any further questions or comments?
I just had one quick question I forgot to ask, sorry.
Yeah.
So other cities, I'm assuming they have additional revenues like taxes or additional, $5, $1, whatever it is on their utility bills. Is that correct?
I know West Lynn does. I don't believe Oregon City does. I didn't look at their actual revenue streams. The only reason I know West Lynn is because I used to work there, but mostly it's general fund. I know if we go into their budget deep, I didn't go in there that deep, you can see where all their revenues are for their parks, and some of it's probably user fees and stuff like that. Rentals, there's other things that the city's looking to do, but they'll be coming later, like shelter rentals and stuff like that. We just haven't got there yet, but I know other cities do that.
Okay, thank you.
All right, Councillor Garlington.
I'd just like to add one more little thing, because I was on the Parks Board at the time that we discussed all of this, and we talked about it, and we talked about it, and we talked about it. Well, a few years ago, we had the pleasure of having our grandson at our house for a couple of school years, and he played ball. And I was surprised to find out that out of 12 kids on his team, the first year there was only 4 kids that actually had Gladstone addresses. And the second year it was a 50-50 thing. So the kids that were not Gladstone residents, although they had gone to school in Gladstone, which is why their parents put them into a ball program within Gladstone, keep your friends together kind of thing. They were not residents of Gladstone. I don't know if they pay a different fee, a higher fee, because they don't have a Gladstone address or not. I'm not sure of that. But I think that comes back down to, and I'm not putting anybody down, it's, residents who are paying the dollars out to use, to upkeep the parks and things like that, versus people who are not paying the taxes within the city of Gladstone. And on another note, I'd like to say that I completely agree with Councillor Ripley in that you've got to keep these kids moving somehow. I mean, they've got to be able to play. If they want to play, I commend all of these ball organizations and sports organizations keeping these kids playing however they have to do it. So that's the other side of the coin. And that's all.
All right, any further questions? So I don't hear anything, so we'll begin taking public testimony, and we are going to start with those that signed up prior to noon today. And it looks like we have 3 people that signed up. Tammy, could you please call them up?
The first is John Rourke with Gladstone Softball.
You guys hear me?
We can. Welcome.
Welcome. How you guys doing today?
Good.
Good. First of all, my name's John Rourke. I'm the president of Gladstone Softball. A little backstory about our organization. We support girls from like 5 years old up to 15 years old. And we generally have 5 to 7 teams each year with approximately 50 to 80 kids for every season. We do, from some of the stuff you guys were talking about, we do our planning for this year, like in November and December, to decide our fees for this year. So we've already had our registration and stuff and planned for our fees for this year. And we don't have any of the usage fees incorporated into our planning for this season. So just put that out up front. We play with other organizations in Clackamas County. We belong to CCGSA, which is Clackamas County Girls Softball Association, which is a lot of different teams in the Clackamas County area, like 170 different teams. And we play half of our games are at home and half are away. We usually start our season with practice in April, and we start our games in May and run through the middle of June. So we pretty much have our teams in order right now, and we're planning for we do fundraising every year, of course. We tried to do fundraising last year. We wound up having one indoor gym was all we had last year because of the COVID virus. So we got hit a little bad with some of our registration fees. We had to refund a lot of those, and we had registered all the teams and paid through USA Softball, which, you know, all the coaches have to go through at a fee, all the teams have to be paid for a fee, and they didn't recoup any of those back to us. So we wound up losing quite a bit of money last year. Which we would use a lot of that stuff to help out with our lower income families for scholarships and new equipment and stuff, but we didn't make any money last year. Even with our fundraiser, we only got about 24% of what we were set to do for a big raffle that we had, because we couldn't get together, and we tried to bump back our season 5 or 6 times, but it didn't ever work out. So we kind of finalized it and made a little bit of money on it, but just enough to kind of cover the bills and stuff. The new field usage fees would probably hinder us this year, since we had to carry over a lot of the people's registrations from last year. A lot of people said to carry their money over for this year. So we kind of transferred them over this year, and we've got this team set in place. Hopefully you guys would vote to do maybe option 2 or 3 for this year, which would be to maybe take out the baseball, softball, and soccer usage fees and treat them like you did for the 2020 season, where we never even got to use any of that, and kind of get started into this process. So just as my 2 cents, I would hope you guys would vote for option 2 or 3 in this number 1190 for tonight. You guys have any questions about softball or anything?
Well, I think what I'd like to do, Tammy, is if you could leave our 3 speakers up so that we can ask questions when they're all done, because I'm sure there's going to be some similar questions for all 3 of them. If that's all right, Mr. Rourke?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay. Tammy, could you call the next person up, please?
The next is Jeff Marco with Gladstone Baseball.
Hello.
Hello, we hear you.
Hi there. There we go. I have
we see you.
Over to you. Hi, my name is Jeff Marco, and I'm the president of Gladstone Junior Baseball. And you know, I was trying to write down some notes as fast as you guys were asking questions, and I know I didn't get them all down, but basically, our registration cost right now, depending on the age group, is between $125 and $150 per player. And that pays for umpires, equipment, uniforms, and insurance. And increasing, and we are a 503 company, and we are nonprofit. And so we don't have extra funds available. We do for this season. We could get by with 1 year, but our registration costs would be significantly increased with the park fees the way they are proposed. So I'm going to say our teams practice 3 to 4 days a week. Once the games start, they go down to 2 games a week, usually 1 at home and 1 on the road, and then 2 practices. So you're looking at 3 days a week on average, and 2 hours at a time. And our season lasts about 4 months. So, and we have 6 teams this year. So you can do the math there. It's going to be a large amount of money we're going to have to come up with. And I think we're, you know, youth sports, we're losing kids every year. And this is definitely going to affect, this is going to turn some families away for sure. There's no doubt in my mind. If we, you know, $150 for a kid to play baseball is a lot of money. And if we raise that to $200 or $250, that can turn some families off for sure.
All right, thank you.
Yep.
Do you have anything else? I'm sorry, I interrupted you.
No, I got a million things, but I'll wait to answer your questions at the end. How's that?
All right, thank you. Tammy, could you call the next one, please?
The last is Scott Busick. I do not show him as an attendee, so if he could raise his hand. Ah, okay, I see him. Scott's with the Gladstone Soccer Association.
Scott, you're muted and we don't see you. There we
okay.
go.
So I just wanted to start by saying that a lot of the questions that you asked the Parks Department were unanswerable because the Parks Department doesn't speak to youth sports in the community. Things like tournaments, example. We've held 2 tournaments in my 10 years as board president. Those tournaments have actually, on average, cost us anywhere between $500 and $1,000. But we do it, meaning we went in the hole. We do it because it's fun for the kids. I think that what you need to look at when you're comparing communities such as Oregon City and Westland and Gladstone, especially when it comes to soccer. For example, Oregon City soccer has roughly on average anywhere between 1,000 and say 1,200 players. Westland and Lake Oswego on average are anywhere between 1,500 and 3,000. Lake Oswego is on the high end of that. All 3 of those clubs run recreational programs, which is the minority of their clubs, and the majority of them are what is called club soccer, which the players pay upwards of, it could be anywhere between $400 to $1,000 to play or more. Gladstone, on the other hand, we have on average, if we're lucky, on a busy year, about 225 players. We are entirely recreational. We have about 40% of our players are low income. We charge $45 for those players to play. We lose money on them. The rest of the registrations are approximately $75, anywhere between $75 and $90, depending on if it's spring or fall. We have roughly 7 games per season, and teams practice twice a week. Part of raising costs, especially for practices, will definitely hurt us. It will cost us, it will force us to raise registration fees, which for Gladstone Soccer, we are probably the smallest club within a 30-mile radius. We are right smack dab in the middle of all these big clubs. Oregon City's been wanting to eat us up for years. We sustain ourselves as a non-profit solely for Gladstone. Now we do take a small percentage of out of resident players, only because we need those players to fill our teams. So for instance, if you have an 11v11 team, you need 15 players. If 4 of those players are non-residents, that's fine, because that means 11 Gladstone residents get to play. If you don't have enough players, those 11 kids don't get to play. So you have to keep these type of things in mind. In my opinion, 2021 is an extremely bad time for the city to start charging us fees. It's post-pandemic, okay? Our budget is lower than it's ever been in my 10 years. We have, similar to softball, We had to give a number of refunds last spring, and we were charged by Oregon Youth Soccer Association, which is our governing body. We lost $2,000 last spring to them. We rely on registration fees to pay our bills. We also have storage fees. I just paid a $1,500 storage fee just to hold our gear. On the flip side, we cost the city $0. We own all of the goals. We voluntarily line, measure, and paint every field with our paint, nothing contributed by the city. My other concern with when you're renting fields for soccer, are you going to be renting fields to other clubs? Because that would be using our equipment on fields that are lined by us. So these are things that I really wish the Parks Department would reach out to us and just have a conversation. Baseball, soccer, softball, we've come together as a group. We've also said to ourselves, how can we help the city? But the city doesn't reach out to us. You guys wanted us to meet with you in 2019 as a get to know us session, okay? The problem with that is that you really just wanted to know how much money we had. And then the next thing we know, fees were implemented, but we didn't know how much those fees were, just like we don't know how much these fees are going to be. So you're not being really transparent. It is completely voluntary, from coaches to me to the only people that are paid are referees, and those are primarily teenagers that are Gladstone residents looking for a side job. We pay for everything, referee fees, everything out of our registrations, and you're forcing us to increase those. So I think that before you start talking fees, before you start comparing us to other cities and other clubs, I think you really need to start reaching out to us and finding out what is it that we need? What can we do for you? I think that instead of looking for how to make money off of kids getting back into sports right now, you should be focusing on hoping that kids get back into sports right now. So that's all I have to say for now.
Great, thank you. All right, I'm sure there's some questions. So let's start with Counselor Todd. Sorry, you're up there at the top.
Not a problem. I was going through sort of the numbers, and not all the information that came from the three sports were the same. So I was trying to sort of do the math. Have you looked at what that would do as a total for your entire association per year? I mean, have you like actually crunched the numbers? Because I'm like sitting here trying to write it all down. Is it, you know, I know how many seasons you have? 2 seasons for soccer. How long are both those seasons?
For spring, it's going to be primarily from, if we get started at the end of March, it's actually going to be April 1st through June 7th.
Okay.
And for fall, it is roughly August through Halloween.
And August,
it's really not long seasons.
Right, and August is when they start practicing. They're not.
Mid-August is when we hope to start practicing, yes.
And how many kids are you giving, helping with scholarships and the reduced cost? Because I'm looking at this, I'm going, $45, I mean, and $75, right. That's really low. That's almost what my kids were paying 10 years ago.
Right. So. Well, and this is when we get concerned about, I know we aren't discussing it tonight, but when we get concerned about parking fees, you know, when there's extra fees, that's costing us money. You know, we don't want to turn these, you know, when a team, I forget who asked the question regarding practices, we would be footing the bill for everything.
Right.
We don't put this out on, you know, the only thing that we put out on the players is to pay the registration. And that should really be it. You know, if the 2 times we held the tournament, we made the cost for that tournament so low only because we wanted players. And the kids loved it, but it cost us, as a club, we went in the hole by $1,000. So everything we do, we're putting back into the club. Every amount of time, everything.
Right.
So that's where we run into, and I would probably guesstimate about 45% are low income. And so those are kids that are getting free uniforms to borrow. Our micro kids get t-shirts, coaches get shirts and things like that. There's extra costs. But, you know, and then when you start getting into having to reserve practice fields and things like that, part of the benefit of volunteering as a coach is a lot of times we're able to get these people to volunteer because they can make their own schedule. And when you're talking about a dad or a mom who is that we give them 8 4-year-olds and say, go teach them soccer, here's some cones and some balls and t-shirts, we just want them to go find an open piece of grass down at Meldrum. They don't need a lot of room, and practice 2 days a week at your convenience. And that's how we sustain. You know, when you talk about the bigger clubs, Oregon City, West Linn, those board members are paid. They're employees. So that's the differences. When you're talking about different communities, you have to look at the size but reach out to us and ask.
Okay.
Like, this is the first conversation I've had with you guys.
Any other questions, Tracy?
Yeah, so there really hasn't been like, it's going to cost our club $5,000 more a year, you know, that kind of a thing. And then divided between 200.
We haven't been given a cost.
Okay. So that's
is it going to be $2 a practice and $10 a game, or going to be triple that? We can't give you a number without it
because of that. Do club teams use the fields at Meldrum Bar at this point? Does anybody know?
Soccer, no, because you guys have given, which as it should be. I mean, and like I said, it's our equipment down there. We're lining the fields. Okay. We share. We provided new goals and gave a set of nets to the high school JV teams that play down there. And the only time that we don't paint a field is when the high school goes down and paints the large field, because that's where the JV team plays. And we bought new goals because it was deeded and gave them a set of nets. So that's the only other club that plays down there.
So what about softball or baseball? Are there club teams that play at Meldrum and use those spaces?
Yeah, we have this year and most years we have between 2 or 3 minor level programs which play at Derrick's Field. This year we only have 2. Numbers are down a little bit, so we only have 2 teams. We have 2 junior level teams, which are 5th and 6th grade kids. They play at Meldrum. And in past seasons, the senior level kids or 7th and 8th graders have been playing up at Cracksburger. But at this point, we don't have approval to play on school fields. So we're not sure if they're going to have to try and make room for them down at Meldrum as well. So it could be potentially 4 teams times, 4 days a week down there at Meldrum for us for 4 months.
And they haven't historically paid up to this point, the club teams, for the usage of the fields as opposed to rec? I don't know if that's softball, baseball. I only know soccer, so.
No, we don't. We have not paid in the past. No, we do provide a lot of our own labor to, chalk is provided for us. We buy the chalkers, we rake the fields, we line the fields, we water the fields down at Derrick's, that is, where we can turn the water on and knock the dust down a little bit. We clean the bathrooms. We clean the nastiness out of the dugouts down at Derrick's. That area can get pretty bad. Broken bottles and all sorts of stuff. We're there early cleaning all that up before other teams show up. Meldrum can get a little dicey as well at times, so that coaches get there early to clean the park, clean the area before other teams get there. Garbage and broken bottles and stuff. We do all that.
Okay, thank you. Can we focus back on what the topic is, and this is the fees. That's what we're talking about, is implementing fees. Do you have any other questions, Councillor Todd?
No, I thought that actually was sort of gathering information of what we were talking about here and the effects that fees would have on our resident rec players as opposed to other players that aren't so much. So that's all I was asking. Go ahead.
Thank you. Councillor Hartman.
Thank you. It sounds like, sorry, I think it was soccer that said, did you say the high school also plays down at Meldrum?
During the fall, yeah, the JV teams.
Are
I don't know if they're playing this spring or not, since high school's playing right now.
Have they ever, not that you would know this, but does anyone know if they've ever paid fees before?
That's a good question.
They have not paid fees before.
I mean, it sounds like from all of you that you all do a fair amount of work for us, for the city, for your teams, and that we haven't reached out and had a proper conversation. To me, if we implement these, we should be doing those things. You know, we have soccer fields. We should be owning that equipment. We should be setting it up. We should be chalking. We should be cleaning up glass bottles. We're providing the service. And so it feels like, I know we don't have the staff for that, but it feels like this might be a conversation that we go into later when we talk about, building this potential, parks department, because I don't feel like if we implement this and we're implementing this to cover fees that we do, but these other teams also do what sounds like a lot of work. I don't know. I feel like that we might need to continue this discussion at another time, but thank you so much for you all providing your input. And I appreciate that. That's all I have.
Councilor Alexander.
Okay, I have a couple things. First of all, it's sort of embarrassing that we like to have conversations, but we didn't reach out to them. We didn't have a conversation with them and get their input and what they could do for us. That's not very, I'm not happy about that. I think youth sports is extremely important. And like Anessa just said, what they're doing with, they're doing so much of the work, so we're going to get some revenue, but then we're going to have to put more staff on to do that kind of work. So it's a give and take. And I think there needs to be more conversation like Councilor Hartman before we go any further. That's just my thought.
Hey, Councilor Tracy.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. I'm just two things. Well, first, I think Councilor Todd is correct. I mean, you want to look at what your cost analysis is going to be going forward. These gentlemen have shared with us that they don't have the numbers or didn't have the numbers before. But then I guess my question would be, if you're operating in an environment where you have a city that's going to collect fees or has a fee schedule to collect fees, I would always, every year, probably insert those costs mechanisms into my pro forma, because we would be able to institute that at any time. Unfortunately, what's happened here is historically no one has done that. So I understand your positions, the three gentlemen's positions. However, I still have citizens who are going to ask me why they're paying and why they're cross-subsidizing these sports when they're not getting what they feel they need from the parks budget. So this is the question for me. It sounds to me like other councilors want to continue to have this discussion, but I think, the pay to play model is in place because it's supposed to cover those costs. However, I heard you, Brian, you saying you're really covering the costs. So there is a whole bunch unraveled here now in just the last 25 minutes. And I don't think we have a complete story. So I don't know what to say, except that I would say the sports clubs probably ought to put together their cost benefit analysis going forward, or their performance going forward, because we are in the position to be able to collect these fees. It's actually on the books. We just haven't done it. This is becoming a little more confusing, and I'm hearing that the city has not engaged with these folks. That too creates some problems for me as well, Councilor Alexander.
Councilor Ripley.
I got a couple of things. First, congratulations to the baseball and softball for suckering the city to pay for your chalk when the soccer hasn't figured out how to get the city to buy his paint. That's and it's been like that for years. But the other thing that we want to remember is, I coached for quite a few years, and comparing our fields to a lot of other fields we played on, we have some nice fields down here. And all we want to keep the cost down, we also want to have the nicest fields for our kids to play on. And if we have to start taking money out of the maintenance on those fields because we can't charge enough for sports, you might be able to allow your kids to play, but they're going to be playing on a field where they're twisting their ankles and they're Years ago, the Corps of Engineers, I believe it was, designed the fields. They redid shape the fields so there's good drainage, and they messed it up a little bit. We added some sprinklers to it at one point, but we got really nice fields, and to keep them nice, unfortunately, it's going to cost a little bit of money. We just need to figure out how we can take care of that, and whether it's the associations figuring out how to do some sort of fundraiser, how they can help us keep it nice. We can't have nice fields for free. I can guarantee you that. We just need to figure out how we can accommodate everybody at the same time.
Thank you. Councilor Garlington.
I just have a couple of questions. Do the kids who sign up for, first of all, I'd like to say thank you for doing all that you do. I know your struggles. I know your time. We've done it all at our house. I was wondering, is there a fee to play sports for residential versus non-residential? And I understand that the fundraising clearly last year lacked, but from what I understand from people, hearing from people, fundraising is kind of a difficult issue with parents these days. I'm not sure how to say that kindly, but it has become an issue. So by simply raising your fees, potentially beginning next year, do you feel that that's your sports clubs can wrap your heads around?
Well, I'll answer the your first question, which was the fees for within Gladstone or without is the same. So we do not charge anything different if you live out of the city limits.
Gladstone Soccer does not either, but I would also caution you about that, because you're talking about like Jennings Lodge kids or kids that might go to Gladstone. You know, I live just on the other side of Jennings, so I'm not considered in district, but my neighbor across the street who's not in district sends his kid to Gladstone. So, I mean, they're all very local kids. And again, like I said before, for maybe the 2 kids on a team, 3 kids on a team that might be out of district, they fill the roster so that 11 Gladstone resident kids can play. Because if you don't have enough players to play, then we can't have, you know, to fill a team, then we can't supply that to kids. So, and to answer a previous question, I would say, yes, I was very proud of Meldrum Bar 5 years ago. It has not been watered. It has not been mowed. It has gotten worse and worse every year. And by, sorry, I forget his name, the parks person saying basically nothing's going to change once they start to collect these fees. So what does the money go to?
I believe that they're in decent shape baseball fields now because we put the work in.
Because you do it.
We have work parties that we, all the board members and parents get out there and we, you know, bust our rear ends at the beginning of every season. And then we rake them out after every game. We put a lot of work into those to keep them up. I don't believe the fields are as nice as they used to be, certainly, but they're as nice as they are because of the volunteers, not because of the city.
Exactly. And it would also be easier to budget, but, you know, for the fees, but the fees started, I believe, at the end of 2019, or maybe, and then we had a pandemic. So that changes things. That changes budgets also. Again, my budget is as low as it's ever been. We're hoping to scrape out of spring season, not in the hole.
So I have
any other questions, Councilor Garlington?
I'm sorry, say that again.
Any other questions?
Oh, sorry.
I have one question, if I may.
Yes.
For soccer, junior baseball, and softball, do you all do your annual budgeting at the same time, or do you do that at different times of the year?
Ours is based on registrations. It grows depending on how many kids register. Right now, we're very low registration for spring because people are still nervous about going back to sports. The budget is based on, we don't set a budget for the year necessarily. When things come up, I mean, we always keep a certain amount in our budget so that we can be paying for bills. We have constant bills. We're constantly buying new uniforms. We're constantly buying paint. We just purchased a couple $1,000s for a paint sprayer because ours broke. Our budget is never very high, and it's constantly rolling, but it's entirely based on registrations. So we need new uniforms right now. I won't be able to buy new uniforms for a year because our budget won't afford it. Uniforms cost us about $6,000.
So to answer Jackie's question, you do not budget at a certain time every year. It's just random.
It depends on how many registrations that is the income that comes in. All right. And what costs are that we need to pay.
John, do you budget at the same time every year?
We try to do it at the end of the year because that's when we find out what some of the softball fees for USA softball and some of our upcoming fees, they're pretty even across the road until USA softball charges more for some things. But yeah, and we never know how many registrations we're going to have. Like soccer was saying, we're probably half to 2/3 right now of what we had last year. I think people are a little bit nervous about registering, so that you can't really say we're going to have this many register because we don't really know every year. But if we have
try to budget at the end of the year.
Try to.
Try to. Jeff, do you usually try and budget about the same time every year?
Yeah, our budget is fluid as well. It has to be based on both of what they just said, but we will kind of reset the budget in the off season for sure. Okay. So after the baseball season's over, we'll regroup and kind of set an estimated budget for the upcoming season.
So that's fall, end of year, about that time.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
So are we specifically, I'm trying to, I understand there needs to be conversations at the administrative level. I do want the city council to understand we have engaged. We have for several years with all three associations. So I don't think that's a fair statement to say the city has not been engaged. I do think that there needs to be some more conversations to see if we can come to some kind of consensus before we bring it back to the city council, if that's what your desire is. But we also have to be clear that the city can't continue to maintain its parks. That's why we haven't been watering them. That's why it's brown out there, is because we don't have the revenue to do that. So I think there just needs to be some acknowledgement on both sides if we're going to try to work on an agreement here.
I would acknowledge that there could be fees. However, I think that the city's being a little naive to think that your parks funds could be paid for by recreational sports. We don't have the income for that. You're not generating the income from us in order to do that. So, but reach out to us and let us know how we can possibly help. Maybe we could do fundraisers. Maybe we can, group together. And other than 2019, when you asked us to come and present our club, we hear from Tammy when it's time to schedule.
Right.
So scheduling, yeah. If you're going by scheduling as you reaching out to us, that's all we do is we get scheduling from Tammy.
Yeah. Agreed. If we knew going into a specific season that Gladstone Junior Baseball owed the city, $4,000 for the upcoming season, just throwing a number out there, we could plan for that. We could add an additional fundraiser or figure out exactly how much the increase in registration. Hopefully it won't be doubling it. If there was a flat fee rather than per practice, per game, are we going to hold tournaments? Are we not going to hold tournaments? All that would cause the overall cost to fluctuate. So we are more than willing to work with the city on fees. We get it. We really do. But we'd like to, ask if there could be some conversation about maybe a flat fee up front, if that was an option.
I would agree to that.
Okay, well, I have a comment. First is that I've been the Parks and Rec liaison for a couple of years now, and Councilor Garlington has sat on the Parks and Rec board. And I can assure you that we spent quite a bit of time outreaching, trying to get these groups to come before the Parks Board and have these conversations. And I can assure you that the reason that you were invited was not to find out how much money you had. That was not the reason that you were brought. You were invited to the Parks and Rec board. It was to have conversations, to figure out how the Parks Board is in the deficit on taking care of these facilities and what we need to do to at least cover costs. So that was it. It had nothing to do with finding out how much money that you had. It sounds to me like there's no way that we're going to come up with a consensus tonight. It sounds like we need to have more conversations. Councilor Alexander?
Yeah, I'm learning quick here after getting on the council, but it seems that with all the volunteer work they do to keep the fields nice, and I know we're separate entities, I've been told that enough times. There's a couple at Cracksburger baseball fields, a soccer field. There's one down here at John Wetton for the T-ball kids I watch them play at and all that. Does the schools charge you guys to use those? Why can't you use those? Or are you working with the schools or to cut some of the cost for your leagues? Or
Gladstone Soccer has been told specifically by the schools that they cannot associate with us. For Gladstone schools, we used to be able to hand out flyers at the school. They stopped that about 5 years ago because their feeling was that they would have to allow that for all clubs and not just Gladstone Soccer. We've never had the opportunity to have goals and play in my tenure with Gladstone Soccer.
And the baseball, the same with the baseball?
No, we play, our seniors play on the same field that the JV team plays at up there, the one with the grass infield. Right. Our seniors play on that field. We do not pay for it. We help maintain it, just like we do all the fields. We chalk it, we supply, we rake it out, we do all the same things that we do the other fields to the school fields. Okay, so that you have games there, right? I mean, correct. Two teams play on that field as their home field. Okay. Yes. And that's the local leagues though that don't, the kids that aren't in school, the summer league or whatever, they get to play. They don't get to use the high school, do they? No. That's when, and up at Cracksburger, they don't get to use those two fields. I mean, during the summer. Well, we don't. I mean, our season runs into July, usually up to the July 4th weekend. So we are still using that field after school is out, if that's what you're asking. Okay. I just wondered if so. You have access to that. I mean, it's your volunteer stuff, and you maintain them. I get that. It's just just a thing I wanted to know is how are you working with school? Are they working with you? Yeah. No, we work with them. Right.
All right, Councilor Ripley, you had your hand up.
Yeah, for Mr. Busick's comment about the school's not letting you practice there. I stopped coaching about 15 years ago, and even when I was coaching a kinder kick team and had 5 kindergartners, we were told we're not allowed to practice at any of the schools. So that's been that way for a long time, and that's a strange thing. You think if there's a bunch of empty grass that the kids could go play at their school in the grass, but even 15, 20 years ago, they still weren't letting the soccer play on any of the school fields.
Yeah, 100%.
Why is that? Does anybody know? Has anyone asked the school?
No idea.
Practice or play here?
We used to about 8-9 years ago. We used to hold have a table at Cracksburger just for registration, and we haven't been able to do that for 7-8 years. So we don't get support from the schools, although we do supply. If I looked at the JV and varsity teams that play for Gladstone High School, we probably supply about 50% of their players.
All right. Thank you. Councilor Hartman, you had your hand up.
Yeah, I just had a thought. Thank you. For our baseball and softball, if we could meet in the middle a little bit this year, how would you feel if we didn't buy the chalk this year?
No problem.
That's fine with us. Yeah, we've offered to do a lot of things, but the city's always provided it. Last year we did. They put little pods there with equipment and stuff, and we did all the work last year on the fields besides the city coming down and dragging them every once in a while, but we did the rest of it. So
just a thought, just hearing Director Weinhoff say that $7,000 to purchase that. So.
Yeah.
Jackie, is this something that maybe should go back to Parks and Rec Board to talk about the details on, for instance, not supplying chalk or not doing the maintenance or other issues, and then have it come back to us?
Well, I think there's a couple of avenues here. You can either put it back to the Parks Board, or you could put it administratively to work through. That's up to the council's direction on what they want to do at this point.
Well, with staff, I don't want to overburden you guys with additional things. So I'm just thinking that maybe Parks Board may be the best place for this to start and to get some of these details ironed out. Councilor Ripley?
When's next Parks Board meeting?
We just had one yesterday, so it's going to be, it'll be a month.
Because I think maybe that'd be a good time. Maybe it'd be a good time to have other counselors have us show up to the parks meeting, and we can just get this taken care of on the next meeting and be done with it.
Yeah, we just need to be careful. There's
we got to provide for the kids, but we also have to be financially responsible and figure out how we're going to pay for stuff. So there's a lot of stuff balancing out there when you need the money. But I think if we'd all sit down and we got to stop always kicking the can down the road and just, I'll show up to the next parks meeting and listen to everybody. I have no problem doing that, but I think we need to draw a line in the sand on how far we're going to stretch this.
Yeah, well, Parks Board, there are advisory groups, so I think it's appropriate that they take a look at this, since they're the ones that have been advising us to move forward with this all along. I'd like to put it back in their lap and them work on the details.
I like that idea, Mayor. I think that that's a great idea. I think that there's a lot of stuff that needs to be talked through. It was a Parks Board recommendation to us, and it clearly doesn't seem like the recommendation is in its entirety yet. So
right. I think there's definitely some details that need to be worked out. Jackie, do you want me to take a consensus on whether people want to do this or not?
I'm pretty sure you have that, but if we saw some head nods or whatnot, that's fine.
Okay. Councilor Garlington?
I would just like to see these three entities put pen to a piece of paper and come to us also with some ideas. I think this has to be a two-way street. I understand you guys are doing so much with so little for so many awesome kids, but it would be really helpful if you met us halfway with even the ideas of how this can come about and how we can have a partnership that's really going to work, rather than waiting for us to come at you one more time and then just hearing, well, I don't like it. Well, give us something, help us out here, because we're looking to have the conversation. So please think about it and send some ideas in.
All right,
we can absolutely do that.
Chad, since this is a public hearing and it sounds like we're kind of going sideways on this, how do you want me to close this up?
You can just close the public hearing and then have if you want to, you don't even need a motion at that point in time. Staff, based on the public hearing, has direction to go back to the Parks Board.
Okay, but I will like a motion to close the public hearing so that we get that formally closed. Would somebody make that motion, please?
I'll make a motion.
Close it.
Close the public testimony.
Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Motion was made by Councilor Todd and seconded by Councilor Alexander to close the public hearing at 8:52 p.m. Tammy, could you do a roll call vote, please?
Councilor Ripley?
Yes.
Councilor Alexander?
Yes.
Councilor Tracy?
Aye.
Councilor Hartman?
Aye.
Councilor Todd?
Yes.
Councilor Garlington?
Yes.
Mayor Stemple?
Yes, public hearing has been closed. All right, so it sounds to me, I'm going to do a consensus. And yes, Councilor Ripley.
Since this is getting put off, I would like to ask the soccer, baseball, and softball associations to be more active on the government side of the city and show up to start being at the park and rec meetings, start showing up to city council meetings so we can get your input before there's an issue there. But the more involvement that you guys have with local government, it's just going to make everything a lot smoother. So having you guys show up parks meetings and city councils and using your 3 minutes to talk, if you say something during a city council meeting, I think would be great.
Right. Thank you. Public hearing is closed. So if you want to take the attendees off, that would be great, Tammy. Thank you very much for coming, you guys.
Thank you.
All right, so first, Councilor Todd, when I made my comment, it wasn't that I felt that your questions were not valid. I absolutely agree that we wanted those questions answered. It's just that people were kind of going sideways and going off on, I'm paying for the paint and I wanted us to come right back to talk about the fees.
I understand, Mayor. I'm sorry.
Yeah, so it wasn't, you had a very valid question. Very, very valid. Thank you. I wanted that answered, but we didn't get it answered. So it sounds like we're not ready to make a decision on this. So I'm going to take a consensus to refer this back to the Parks and Rec Board at their next meeting. Councilor Todd? Yes. Yes or no? Yes. Yes. Councilor Hartman? Yes. Councilor Alexander?
Yes.
Councilor Tracy? Councilor Ripley?
Yes.
Councilor Garlington?
Yes.
And I'm a yes also. So please refer this back to Parks and Rec, and hopefully we'll have our minutes done by then so that we can supply them with the minutes of this particular discussion.
Yeah, they will be done by then.
Okay, perfect. All right, that was a long one, guys. All right, next is appointments to the Audit Committee, Budget Committee, and Traffic Safety Advisory Board. Staff.
So first of all, the Parks Board can also watch the Zoom meeting. It's recorded. They can go back to that agenda item if they want to understand the discussion points, and we'll ask them to do that.
Good, thank you.
For this item, you have 2 applications. We'll take them one at a time. You still have openings on the Audit Committee, the Budget Committee, and the Traffic Safety Advisory Board. The first application is from Tanya Neff. And she originally said she would like to either be on the audit or the budget committee. You have a copy of her application in the packet. We have talked to her since she submitted, and she's actually fine being on both committees if the city council chooses to do that.
All right. Since we only have 1 application for 2 openings, would someone like to make a motion to appoint Tanya Neff to the, which one first? I'm sorry, my papers are all over. To the Audit Committee.
So,
Who made the motion? Councilor Todd made the motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Motion was made by Councilor Todd and seconded by Councilor Tracy. Do we have any discussion on this one? Tammy, could you do a roll call vote, please?
Councilor Garlington.
Yes.
Councilor Todd.
Yes.
Councilor Hartman.
Aye.
Councilor Tracy.
Aye.
Councilor Alexander.
Yes.
Councilor Ripley.
Yes.
Mayor Stemple.
Yes. So Tanya Neff has been appointed to the Audit Committee. The next one is the Budget Committee. And again, we only have 1 applicant for 2 vacant positions, and that is Tanya Neff again. Would someone like to make a motion to appoint her, please?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion was made by Councilor Garlington, seconded by Councilor Hartman to appoint Tanya Neff to the Budget Committee. Any questions or concerns, discussion? Tammy, could you do a roll call vote, please?
Councilor Hartman. Councilor Todd.
Yes.
Councilor Garlington.
Yes.
Councilor Ripley.
Yes.
Counselor Alexander,
Yes.
Counselor Tracy,
Aye.
Mayor Stemple.
Yes. That's 9F. It's been appointed to the Budget Committee. Last is the Traffic Safety Advisory Board. Again, we have one application for 2 vacant positions, and that's for Jeffrey Johnson. Would someone like to make a motion to appoint Jeffrey Johnson to the Traffic Safety Advisory Board?
I make a motion that we appoint Jeffrey Johnson to the Traffic Safety Board.
I second it.
Motion was made by Counselor Garlington, seconded by Counselor Alexander to appoint Jeffrey Johnson. Any discussion? I don't see any hands. Tammy, could you do a roll call vote, please?
Counselor Alexander.
Yes.
Counselor Tracy.
Aye.
Counselor Hartman.
Aye.
Counselor Todd.
Yes.
Counselor Garlington.
Yes.
Counselor Ripley.
Yes.
Mayor Stemple.
Yes, Jeffrey Johnson is on the Traffic Safety Advisory Board. Great. All right. Do we have any business carried forward, Administrator?
Just have one quick item for your next work session. Before we talk about the Gladstone Fire Department, we want to do an ice storm debrief. And I would like that to be open to the public so that we can get feedback from people in the community. And so I just wanted to make sure that the city council was comfortable with that, because typically the second meetings of the month, we don't do public comment, but just for the ice storm debrief, I would like to invite people that are participating to be able to speak. And I wanted to make sure you guys were okay with that.
All right. Is everybody okay with that?
Yes.
Yes. Thumbs up.
Yes.
Counselor Alexander, you're good with that? Okay, you're muted. Counselor Tracy, thumbs up. Counselor Ripley?
Yes.
Okay, good. Yes, please. Thank you. Wonderful.
Thank
All
you.
right, do we have any business from the audience, Tammy?
No, we do not.
All right, then we can move on to business from the council. We'll start with Counselor Todd because she's up there at the top.
I'm at the top here. I just wanted to say how I was so proud of our community, our staff, our police department, our fire department, everything during the ice storm. It was very trying for a lot of people. It's still very trying. I have remnants of a tree in my house, and I know I'm not the only one. And so it made me proud to live in this town. It was exactly what I love about Gladstone. You know, Counselor Hartman and Ginger Z is what I call her, helping out with mutual aid. There was just so many people willing to help wherever they could. And the amount of hours that staff put in was incredible. So thank you very much. Thank you for reminding me and give me, you know, why I love this town. So.
Thank you, Counselor Hartman.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. I had some updates on the school district, but I think that will be changing for tomorrow, just for all of your information with the recent update from our governor on Friday. We are scheduled to go back to hybrid on April 1st. That is what's happening, but that may change. So I'll be sure to update you all. I just wanted to also say thank you so much to everyone. February is obviously a difficult month, even though it was so short. But thank you to our police, fire, public works, our administrator Betts. I also want to give a huge shout out again to the community that came out. From my own personal experience, I just had a wonderful opportunity meeting everybody. And like Counselor Todd said, it's great to see everyone that came together, and thank you to our school district for allowing us to use the space. It was just a beautiful moment. So thank you. That was all.
All right, Counselor Alexander.
Okay, I've got a couple things. I'm gonna start with one that's not so positive. I'm gonna hold this up. This is a letter. You can't read it, but I'll read it to you. It was put on the post office. It was put on the laundromat. It was put on pin boards up around and down Portland Avenue. And it reads, Gladstone residents, with less than a 1% African-American population, our mayor mistakenly thinks Gladstone is a hotbed of racism, where people of color are afraid for their lives, are aggressively discriminated against, and are not protected by our Gladstone police. So she created resolution number 1184. Please read online at Gladstone City Newsletter, January 2021. It's hard to believe our mayor has so little knowledge of the state and federal laws and discrimination and so little confidence in our police to protect its citizens. Well, we as a council know this person who wrote this is so wrong on so many levels that it's just, it's ridiculous. And they didn't sign their name. And that tells me right there, you know, that's a sign to me of cowardice. You could have come to anybody on the council. You can have a conversation with any of us. You can reach out to us through our emails. We can explain and talk to you, but your information is so wrong on this letter. And to go up and down Portland Avenue and start spreading that, I didn't appreciate it. I didn't like it. So anyway, so now on a positive note, I want to thank my neighbors across the street, Dieter, Sarah, Jack, Diana, Xander, and Sadie. They're a family that live across the street that went out for 11 days straight with a trailer, 18-foot trailer. They hit over 41 houses, taking over 35 loads to Meldrum Bar, also getting help from Ralph Mattil, Corinne Milano, and some high school students, Kara Rolls and Gabe Seymour. They all went above and beyond to help the seniors and everybody that needed to have a path cleared or get some debris out of their yard. I spoke before this meeting with Chief Huffman, Chief Schmerber. They both have great positive plans and goals for the police and fire, and they'll be presenting it to us here in the near future. And they all like working together. They love Jackie, and they want the citizens of Gladstone to know that you don't ever hesitate. If you have a question or a concern, please reach out to them. They're available. And with that, that's all for me. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Tracy.
I'm just going to echo Councilor Todd's previous sentiments about the community and add that we were noticed and recognized by some of our neighboring communities as really having our stuff together during the ice storm and the event. I have to commend city staff, Jackie, and your directors have done a fantastic job pivoting to the Meldrum Bar material laydown area. That was fantastic. It kept stuff out of the system, and it kept the system from collapsing. I think everybody did a great job. The mayor, I know you were involved with things. Other councilors were working with other groups. This is how a city pulls together to look out after its own. The comparison that was made from a nearby city was, here's Gladstone with little resources, doing everything they can for their city and their citizens when we as a city can't even seem to run an extension cord out of the city hall to allow people to charge their iPhones. That was an observation made by somebody who's pretty closely involved with one of our neighboring cities. So a city, by the way, which has a much healthier annual budget than we do. So to our staff and our city and the elected officials, who I know at times we've disagreed with each other, it seems that at these times, we actually know how to be good humans and pull together. I commend all of us on this call. I commend the entire city. We did a fantastic job. We set the bar, and we'll continue to do so as we start to do the after actions and talk about the ice storm event and other community groups that we want to be able to form to help work towards our resiliency. But I have to just give kudos to the city leadership, staff, and our citizens. We actually shined. I'll just leave it at that. Thank you.
Councilor Ripley.
Well, I'm not going to repeat anything's already been said about the ice stuff, but one thing I have noticed, you know, I'm out walking my dogs a couple times a day, and people are picking up their dog crap. But if you pick it up in a bag and then throw it in the people's bushes, it doesn't count. And the walk that I've been doing, I'll see 6 or 7 bags of dog crap in people's bushes. And I don't think the people appreciate it. I wouldn't appreciate it, but keep walking your dogs, but we need to encourage people to clean up after them and take the stuff home with them. That's all I got.
Thank you. Councilor Garlington.
Well, everything everybody said about the storm is just, you know, yes, and more yes. And to say I'm from Gladstone has always made me proud, but driving up and down our streets, it kind of looks like Gladstone's the only city in Clackamas County ready for spring. So You know, we've already all done our spring cleanup. And so that's where we're at with that. You know, and it's just, like everyone else says, it's just been a privilege to be there. I would like to give a shout out to the Gladstone Pickleball Club. I got down there and helped with them a little bit. And while a lot of people that play pickleball that live in Gladstone were busy cleaning up their own yards, which, you know, you got to do what you got to do. 90% of the people that were down there cleaning up Max Patterson that Saturday morning, 90% of them live outside of Gladstone, but are part of the pickleball club. So again, kudos to the pickleball club. Thank you for cleaning up our park and a park that you enjoy. We appreciate it immensely. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And I have nothing to report from the budget committee, the audit committee, or the senior committee, or the senior advisory committee, because they haven't had a meeting. But I would like to just give a little shout out, way off topic, to the kids I know off the USS Nimitz who are finally back after an 11-month deployment. And if any one of them or any of their family are listening, from the bottom of my heart, I'm glad that your loved ones are home.
Because your loved one's home. It's awesome. Yeah, and it was on the news. Yeah. All right, I'm last. I think I got everybody covered. Food pantry is now located at the Hillside Christian Fellowship Church in the back portables. We're stocked up and we're supplying food boxes now to the homebound seniors, GCCF, and the COVID quarantine families. As soon as we have clear direction from the Oregon Health Authority on how we can open up the full service pantry again, that's what we will be doing. Food insecurity is a much bigger issue than any of us realize. So many people hide the fact that they're impacted as deeply as they are. So whatever you can do to help, please do. It's huge. Last night was the Parks Board meeting, 5 new members out of 7. It's huge change. John Eichstead is the new chair and Bruce Hildreth is the vice chair. We received an update on the Meldrum Bar parking fee station. The city is just waiting for confirmation on the delivery of the unit. It's going to be installed in the open area to the right, just past the arborvitae as you come into Meldrum Bar. The actual fees have not been finalized yet, but they're leaning towards $3 a day for the parking and a $40 annual pass fee. And the resident passes, that process is still being worked out. The machine is going to just be credit and debit, but they're working on a way that if you don't have a credit card, you can come to City Hall and buy your parking pass or your annual pass. Darren gave us an update on the storm debris. They estimate approximately 10,000 to 15,000 cubic yards of yard debris was dumped. They kept it open for 12 days. And during those days, we had staff manning it so that we would ensure that it was Gladstone residents that were dropping off the material. The chipping, I think, has started today. Is that correct, Jackie? Or it's soon to start?
It started yesterday.
And they're thinking that that's going to equal about 5,000 to 7,000 cubic yards of chips, which is way more than the city of Gladstone needs. So they're trying to locate groups that are willing to take a large chunk of it literally off our hands. The fire department is now working on removing their training facility. So keep looking for that to be gone. The damaged trees at Ames Park have been removed and replanted. Public Works, you'll see them out there gleefully pressure washing everything and getting us all ready for the summer. And also, I think the biggest part of the meeting last night was some pictures that we were shown of the RC car area down at Meldrum Bar and the amount of erosion and degradation that's happening down there. It's incredible. The entire path behind it between that and the river is just covered in mud. Huge puddles everywhere, basically a creek running through the RC car area. Parks Board's very concerned about this. They've been concerned for a while, but now it's ramped up and they want me to stress how important it is to get the Meldrum Bar site plan done so that we can either decide to relocate them to a more appropriate area or to not have them there at all. So I'm begging you, please get that Meldrum Bar Park site plan done. The Clackamas County Coordinating Committee, which I refer to usually as C4, we discussed the Climate Action Plan, which is going to be a region-wide plan, which we are a part of. The plan is to have this adopted in January of 2023. And the goal is to have the entire county carbon neutral by 2050. And they're not only talking carbon neutrality, but they're talking resiliency and adaptation. Of course, because of the ice storm and the wildfires, those two things have been added as important. They want to create 2-year implementation plans so that it's doable and it's measurable ongoing instead of not being measurable until the end. The vehicle registration fee, the new Clackamas County Chair, Tootie Smith, ran on the platform of getting rid of it. Well, the county spent years, at least 2-3 years, with so much community engagement and going over this. It's been implemented. And basically the county commissioners, they didn't vote, but they implied that they weren't willing to discuss it right now, but it's going to be discussed soon, I'm sure. The region's Joint Policy Advisory Committee on Transportation, referred to as JPACT, their focus, because of the wildfires and the ice storm, is now going to be emergency evacuation and escape routes, because they realized just how inadequate that was. And the fact that maybe a few people in the EOC knew what those were, but nobody else did. So until you roll it out and let the citizens know what the action plan is, it's not going to go anywhere. So I will let you know how that moves forward. And I've been appointed the C4 Executive Committee representative for all of the urban cities. So if you guys have any issues that you want brought up, please let me know. We deal with transportation and affordable housing issues. Let's see. As some of you may know, Clackamas County is now at a moderate risk COVID level, opening up more businesses and lessening the restrictions, but that does not mean that we are safe. We still need to do all of the protocol, masks, washing hands, distancing, quarantining. COVID numbers are going up. We're now at 364 cases, which is up 40 from our February 9th meeting, 8 from last week. And I want to make sure everybody realizes, as I said, 364 cases total. It didn't go up 364 cases. That is the total. And for those desperately seeking for a vaccine appointment, I am so sorry. We're feeling it. I'm trying desperately to get my parents vaccinated. It's just not happening. With the Johnson & Johnson, in the meetings I'm on, they're assuring me that the bottleneck is going to loosen up. Don't know when that's going to be. Don't know what that's going to look like. Go to the credible sources to get the information, and hopefully the pathway will be simpler to get an appointment. Just keep trying. That's all I can say. Just keep trying. And that's it. I want to mirror what everybody else said. Thank you to everybody that stepped up. This is truly what makes Gladstone great. It was amazing seeing everybody out there. And I mean, everybody. We had people hauling wood to other people's houses to keep them warm, delivering meal. I mean, it was an amazing experience. It's unfortunate that it had to happen in an emergency, but it's really what makes Gladstone great. So will someone make a motion to adjourn, please?
Moved. A second.
Motion was made by Councilor Tracy, seconded by Councilor Alexander to adjourn. Any further discussion? Nope. Tammy, could you do a roll call vote, please?
Councilor Ripley?
Yes.
Councilor Alexander?
Yes.
Councilor Tracy?
Aye.
Councilor Hartman? Aye. Councilor Todd?
Yes.
Councilor Garlington?
Yes.
Mayor Stemple?
Yes. Meeting is adjourned at 9:17 p.m. Thank you, everybody. Have a good evening.